G'day and welcome to On The Esky, an Australian sports podcast where we like to wrap up the week that was in sport. We did have last week off, a little bit of COVID in one camp.
We've missed two sessions.
And
We have two.
Someone had a kid. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
Commiserations.
Commiserations. It's been great. It's been great so far.
Right?
So far, yes, it has been great. But yeah, we're back. We're feeling wetter than influencers at Splendour in the grass, Splendour in the mud, and we're ready to crack into the 2 weeks that were in the wide world of sports. We have footy. We're going to start with footy today. NRL and AFL. The seasons are getting right down to the business end. A lot of finals implications. There's cricket. There's Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
NFL. One of our favourite sports just around the corner, plus a final round with UFC 277, F1, etc., etc. Please remember we have timestamps. You can skip to the sports that you like, or just listen to the whole thing if you're a nuffy and sports nerd like we are. Hit that subscribe button, etc., etc., etc. We like to start the show by shouting a beer to commend excellent performance in the sporting arena. Monks, my man on my right, how are you? Who are you shouting a beer?
Yeah, going pretty good. This one's pretty well, I suppose it's topical because it is sports related, but also topical for me. Ash Barty. She got hitched early on the month, so
You married Ash Barty. Well done.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I did.
Getting that cash.
That's it. No,
That's not how it works.
no. So I spent today up in the Kangaroo Valley just checking out wedding venue for later on in the month. So
Join us.
yeah, that's
She's
it.
a gold digger.
No, I don't make enough money for children.
I think you're referring to poor Ash's husband.
No, of course not. Keep going.
Maybe he's big in the crypto world, dude. You don't know.
Could be. Gary Kissick, tied the night with Ash Barty early in the month. They posted the photos on social media, just announcing, I guess, the joyous news.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Nice and
very
cheap,
much
those
so.
wedding photographers, aren't they?
Oh, very
very.
cheap. Worth their weight in gold, though. But yeah, shouting her a beer. We shouted a few beers already.
She might be
At
up there
least.
for most beers shouted on this show.
She's almost a degenerate like you, Peppy, at this rate.
Well, we've shouted her 4 beers. I'm probably about to drink 4 beers in the next hour and a half. So I wouldn't quite say degenerate. Golden girl.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
Australian superstar, Ash Barty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she does like a cold one, and she can have one courtesy of the Esky. And congratulations on another one to join the married club.
That's it. Yeah.
Maybe she can join the married with kids club soon.
Maybe. Well, I mean, she retired for a reason.
I guess.
Yeah.
Play golf.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And Shauna, who are you shouting a beer? Okay, that segment's done. Very good.
We didn't change it. It's still up there.
Sean, who would you like
I've got the
to
power.
shout a beer?
Yes. I wanted to shout out Queensland because unfortunately, due to our little break, I didn't get my half an hour of dick riding for the Queensland team of how excellent they were to win the series.
I'm sure you've ridden plenty of dick in the last 2 weeks. So.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No, not at all. Not at all. I had my pride jersey on. It's all good, bro. Like, let's go. So, Queensland, they were excellent in that third game.
State of Origin we're talking about.
State of Origin, of course, winning that series at home with a very valiant and very excellent game of footy, really. Was one of the better deciders and one of the better Origin games in recent memory. So it was great for our lads to get that, and that New South Wales jersey up behind you boys ended up being a bit of a disappointment. Unfortunately, no sweep, but we'll get them next year.
Firstly, they're not our lads, your lads. And secondly, see you next year with Latrell and Tommy Turbo and et cetera, et cetera. I suppose it didn't have Munster. And yes, I guess it was one of the better Origin games I've ever seen. Yeah. War of attrition early on, yada, yada, yada. It was 2 weeks ago. Who cares a fuck?
Someone's still butthurt.
Very salty, mate. Very salty right here. Anyways, I would like to shout a beer to the Aussie athletics team, not at the Commonwealth Games, but at the World Champs last week. And more specifically, the women's field athletes absolutely killed it. It was our best ever showing on the medal tally at a World Championships for athletics. 2 gold, 1 bronze, and it all came courtesy of our girls in the field, Eleanor Patterson in the high jump, Kelsey Lee Barber in the javelin, and Nina Kennedy with the bronze in the pole vault. We will talk a little Commonwealth Games in this ep, if that's your thing.
It's only just started. We're day Day two of events? Yes.
Day three, I believe.
Yeah, technically day 3, but opening ceremony day was Friday.
Was Thursday.
Oh.
There you go. That's how we've been following it.
No, it was Friday our time.
I suppose it's 8 hours difference if you want to really pull that.
It was Friday morning our time. That's how
Yeah.
Technicality.
Okay.
Technicality
there you go. Time zones.
Mop of the week. We like to hand out a mop. It's the opposite of the shout of beer. It's for something silly that happened during the week, and we're giving it to the NRL
silly,
in general.
dumb,
Is that what we're doing?
Well, I think the week that they had, yes, in general, because it was
started with a Tigers Cowboys blunder.
Yes,
going to the bunker.
Cowboys given the victory.
A challenge that probably shouldn't have been allowed. A very dubious penalty to give Valentine Holmes the opportunity to kick and win the game last week for the Cowboys and
the Tigers.
Kevin Proctor of getting sacked for vaping
during half time.
Yeah, great move there from the Gold Coast Titans, getting rid of his contract like that. And then the big talking point, I suppose, of the week, not just in the NRL, but just in the Australian sports sort of sphere, was the 7 Manly players that did not want to wear the Pride jersey for religious/cultural reasons. Manly did go out to play the Sydney Roosters on Thursday night. They were going to, they did wear a Pride jersey, the first time that it's ever been done in the NRL. However, 7 players did not want to take part. Sean, thoughts?
I wonder why they're doing it now. They've been playing in a Manly jersey all season, so...
Fair.
It was all round. It ended up, I guess, being a shit show, and it was perfectly standard affair for the NRL.
It was very rugby league, wasn't it?
Very rugby league. Yeah, like the club handled it poorly. The players probably, of course, didn't get a consultant throughout the process, but then it's a terrible look for the way that we probably should be, and they, especially with previous comments about how inclusive the league is trying to be going forward, it kind of ended up being a bit of
shit show.
Shit show. Hypocritical, I think, for some of the management as well.
Yep.
And they fed Des and DC to the Wolves essentially.
Didn't they? That press conference on Monday, and Des was kind of reading off a bit of a script. I thought him and DCE both handled themselves pretty well.
Yeah, I think Des as well, getting anything that we couldn't answer. And a lot of the stuff he probably didn't have to answer. He was just throwing it. It's like, you should talk to management about
They should talk to management.
Yeah, because they were the ones that kind of fucked this all up. But
yeah. And I can let me say straight up, if I had to wear a Pride jersey, and for local footy, let alone as it being a highly lucrative job, I would have no dramas wearing a Pride jersey and standing for inclusivity. It was handled poorly by Manly to the fact that they had sent these jerseys out to Hugh Jackman and Chris Hemsworth weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but the players were only consulted about it on Monday. Obviously, the team was picked on Tuesday. All the news broke on Monday, and the hoo-ha. And
they did the photo shoot, and you can see who they picked to do the photo shoot. I think they probably already had some thinking.
They probably had an idea in mind.
It was just a absolute shit show.
And also the encroaching on women's in league round as well. Again, all for inclusivity, but there kind of is already a women's in league round. So for them to step onto that was silly. Having said that, I think it is a little bit hypocritical of the players that are happy to have PointsBet and 4 Pines sponsor them and have tattoos and the rest of it to nitpick this as the hill that they wanted to die on in terms of their religious/cultural beliefs. What do we think about the league moving forward? There's been some comments around maybe trying to get a Pride round introduced. I don't see that happening in the near future, given the hoopla that it's caused just from 7 players objecting. It could be 30% of the league. That has a problem with it. If there's 7 blokes from one club, obviously the AFL has. We spoke about it a few weeks ago. Yeah, they've been doing it for 5 years. St Kilda and Sydney, wearing Pride jerseys and having, the LGBT community celebrated with really no issues in the AFL. Is rugby league behind again? In terms of this, or did the players have a right to refuse to wear this jersey.
Well, which I think is also the kind of a big issue because it was Manly, because they have probably the biggest known
Ian Roberts.
Yeah, Ian Roberts, but openly gay player that since his playing career with them. So they could have definitely done a really good thing here. Probably need to pick a different week, as we talked about, but they probably could have worked that out and done a good job. But the NRL's going to NRL. And they'll keep finding ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And
Ian spoke out, quite loudly this week, and said, that obviously he was very upset, but he said he wasn't surprised. He said he wasn't surprised. So that's kind of sad for someone that that came out in the 90s. Was the first Australian contact sport player ever to come out as gay. For him to say that he's not surprised, it's kind of like maybe things haven't really changed a whole heap in the last 20 or 30 years. But again, it's a shit show, and that's why we've given the mop of the week to the NRL in general.
They continued into the round of footy, so
exactly. It just in all aspects of this, the way that it was handled by Manly, the way that it was handled by the players. It kind of covering up a huge blunder last week, as we mentioned, with the Cowboys Tigers. But look, we haven't had too much hoopla this year in the NRL in terms of off-field stuff. Of course, it was going to happen, wasn't it?
Yeah, most of the problems have been on-field with the quality of decisions. To say
we'll get stuck into that when we discuss this round.
But I think just to finish up on this, I think Manly fans did a man this, of course, buying all the jerseys. They sold out of that.
Sold out very quickly,
and I think for them, they're the biggest losers in this because the squad. I think they're outside the 8th. They're like 9th currently. They were
playing the 8th place Chooks. It was a season-defining game. And I think these players, whether, you agree with their stance or not, everyone can agree that they've sold their club short here because they may have cost them a finals chance by not playing.
I reckon, the Manly jersey is the Dragons barbecue of last year. So I think that
as a Dragons fan, I'll cop it.
I think you probably put a line through them now because those 7 are going to have a hard time. Like they, of course, they didn't go to the ground for this game because they're worried about potentially the crowd get stuck into them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's rumours this morning that Dez's job's in trouble as well. I don't know.
That's unfair.
Exactly. It's not his fault. Maybe go look at the board and the chairman before you start looking at Dez. I think they'll do their best. DCE will try their best there. They've got a good squad, but I just think that's probably broken the camel's back, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not going to bring a club together, is it?
Nope.
You wouldn't think?
Nope.
Not at this end of the season.
No.
Definitely not.
Oh, well, as a Dragons fan, that's hoping for a top 8 berth, although the way they play this evening, I'm not counting on it.
I think the Raiders probably in a bit of the driver's seat for that at the moment.
Raiders and Chooks. Speaking of the Chooks, they went out and won that game. It was 20-10. It was closer than a lot of people suspected. I think the line was 18.5. Given all the outs for Manly, we have spoken ad nauseum about this topic. So maybe we move on.
Mm-hmm.
Storm.
What do you want to cover? Did Marty DePau actually end up going to the Eels? Because he wanted an immediate release to go, and it had to be done today.
Quick Google, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, DePau came out during the week saying that he wanted out of Manly, and the Eels were highlighted as the team that he might be going to. Any news on that, or
nothing recent? Nothing since he made that announcement on Friday. Because the deadline is the 1st of August. So if it doesn't happen today, as in the next 6 hours, he will still be with Manly.
There you go.
Yep. But I wonder if...
No reports.
Yeah, I wonder if that broke the back a little bit where they... again, same thing. This is like writing on the wall and DePau's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Possibly. Storm Warriors. The Storm broke their 4-game losing streak over in New Zealand with a 24-12 win. The big story, I suppose, was the Storm going out, sniffing around, seeing if any players were interested in coming across.
When you say sniffing, you mean like trying to hit up everyone. Every ex they had.
Reece Walsh, Shaden Campbell was some of the names that they had been targeting. But they ended up signing David Noful Alama from West Tigers.
Yeah, on a loan.
On a loan, yes, sorry, on a loan.
They have to give him back, but
they have to give him back. But we have seen this the last few years where teams will approach other teams that aren't going to have finals aspirations. We saw it with Tavita Pangai Jr.
And
last year.
And the Storm and the Tigers have a relationship with Harry Grant of doing this. So I hope that seemed to work out nicely for both. So hopefully that'll be amicable in this situation as well.
What do you think about it?
Top teams getting good players towards the end of the season.
Stinks a bit, I think.
Yeah, well, I think soccer handles this, of course, with they have transfer windows and then big transfer fees for it to happen.
Yeah, and their transfer windows are mid-season, mind you. Yes. It's not like here where
not now, which
the last 5 rounds.
Yeah, we're in the last quarter essentially. Yeah, and we're not sure what the Tigers got out of this. I'm assuming they got a decent kickback for their club. But
it's not disclosed, is it?
No, I don't think so.
You know how it works, a salary cap?
I'm assuming they take on his contract for the remainder of the year. And I wonder how that, because I'm not sure, there's no real injured reserve as well, so they're still paying Pappenhausen even though he's not playing, but I'm not sure.
Horrible injury, that fractured kneecap.
That's what led to this situation, and that was probably one of the worst injuries I've seen, and big Jack White and running.
Knee on knee.
Yeah, and he's a big lad to run over you as well, and shattered it. The X-rays, it's in like 10 pieces. He's got three screws in there now. It's fucked.
You feel for Pappy, don't you?
Yeah.
He just hasn't had a good run of it. We spoke to
it's a freak
now, or it's just riddled with injuries.
Head knocks, knee.
But like this is a freak injury. That blows your kneecap up. Like,
you see the MRI? In multiple pieces, poor fella. So wishing him all the best with his recovery.
Yeah, so overall, probably not a huge.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of if you want to try and poach players. Yeah, I wouldn't mind, like we alluded to, like an EPL kind of system where it's got to be sorted kind of by magic round or something. Earlier on in the year.
There's usually deadlines. The NFL's got a trade deadline. Like it's always usually around mid-season where you've got to get you set your roster, and that's what you got for the rest of the year. NRL, of course, hasn't learned anything from any other league in its existence. So,
are we just saying that because it's a Storm? Like, if it was the Broncos that had a couple injuries and they were shopping around.
Oh, it's the Broncos as well.
Same opinion?
Same opinion because I hate both.
It's more for Gold Coast Titans.
Anyone other than the Dragons.
Yeah. If Cameron Munster wants to come and play 6 for the Dragons, I'll be all for it.
Which I think
I'll shout him a beer for that.
Which I think is probably in this instance it's kind of okayish because we're talking about good players, but we're not talking about Cameron Munster. Like if Cameron Munster was like, "Hey, I'm going to go play for Penrith because they've got no halves anymore." Yeah, everyone would be like, "What the fuck's happening?" You can't do that. Well, he's a better DCE, like because they're probably not going to make the 8, and Penrith are like, "Hey, we'll take you on for the rest of the year. We'll loan you, and you can come win a comp with us." That I think that's bullshit. But a guy that's like a fringe star, good. And again, I can wear that a little bit.
It's not a perfect analogy either, given that Cleary and Luai most likely back for finals.
Yes.
But I'm with you. If it was a massive player in a key position as well, you're picking up a good winger. Does that solve all your problems? No. Probably not. Maybe we would think of it differently.
Big change where it's like essentially guaranteed the season's won, and everyone's like, "Oh, give them the trophy now. They've won it." Yeah, I think that's probably unfair in that circumstances.
Yeah.
Speaking of Cameron Munster, rumours of a $1.3 million a year deal from the Redcliffe / don't have a name yet, Dolphins. Yes. Which would make him the highest paid player in the NRL. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation around this happening, for weeks and weeks and weeks. Monks, let us know what you find.
What I also found where we're at. Interesting that we probably missed was he's not off contract till the end of next season, so he can't actually officially negotiate till November. Of this year.
Of this year.
Yeah, so that's probably why we haven't heard anything about extensions or anything for the Storm, because he's probably waiting to that date, finish the season, and then see what offers on the table. The rumours were that Storm were going to offer him around the 700 or 800K kind of mark, and the Dolphins have gone, they've been signing everyone in the back line at the moment, but they're all kind of fringe guys. They still need that marquee franchise dude. And they've obviously got money still floating around. And they're like, Munster, you can have all of it. Highest paid player in the league, and that's going to be a very hard thing to turn down.
And we've looked at that, that list as they've assembled it this year, and we've said, good forward pack, on the outside backs. Spine. What is going on with this spine, and who are they going to get? Obviously, Munster changes things dramatically in how you'd view their kind of aspirations.
They got Sean O'Sullivan, and I think they signed Lamb during the week. I think they find
Lachlan Lamb.
I can't remember. They signed a 6 during a week as well, and I was like, oh, that's decent enough. That'll get you through a year, because either way, Munster's probably going to play for Storm next year, so he's not going to be there for the first season. But have him on the books, and that helps you then buy players for the following year. So it'll be quite interesting, and whether he wants to be the highest paid player. There's some rumours as well. The Titans are a bit worried because they are concerned that the Dolphins will be better than next year, which I think is probably going to be pretty fair.
Yeah, the footy that the Titans have been dishing up, quite disappointing.
Still surprised Holbrook is the coach at this point. They're almost locked into the spoon. They're 2 games behind now, I think.
With the Tigers winning, yeah. Any news there on that Munster contract, or
no?
Just kind of rumours? 1.3.
Just rumours. There hasn't been any recent news.
It was Marshall King that I was thinking of.
Yeah, that was a few weeks back with Marshall King.
Well, we've been away a couple of weeks. So.
True. The Tigers only are 2 points clear
game
of the Titans. Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
The enigma that is Parramatta continues to surprise with a 34-10 demolition of the 12-man Penrith Panthers for a lot of this game. That was the big talking point, I suppose, was the Nathan Cleary spear tackle. The league came out yesterday saying that it will be a 5-week suspension. Should he choose to try and fight it, it could be going to 6
guilty,
weeks. So he's already pleaded
an hour
guilty.
Or two ago, I think.
So he's going to cop the 5 weeks. There's 5 games left. Maybe it's just a nice rest for Nathan Cleary coming into finals. The speculation, I suppose, was it worth 5 weeks, considering we saw Carl Lawton get 4 weeks for his shot on Cam Murray earlier in the year, which by my eyes and from chatting around, there seems to be a lot of people's eyes, look worse.
Yes. Yeah, and definitely, I think they were either it was worse or very much on par. So I think 4 weeks, to me, 4 weeks was fair. And I thought with his last name, he might have got a couple of weeks off that.
So the reverse of what happened.
Yes, exactly.
He has priors from earlier in the year where he received a fine.
I believe that's the case, and that's added. Though they don't do loading, that's added a little bit to the conversation with his private priors there. So that's why he's also got the extra week. But he's copped it. It'll be interesting what happens with Penrith now having no halves.
That man Sean O'Sullivan that we just spoke about, who played very well earlier in the year, he's going to have to step up. The other thing is...
He played 6 for him in this game, because Luai is out as well for 5 or 6 weeks as well, because he's got a leg injury. I don't remember where, though.
MCL for Luai, and it was Sean O'Sullivan that played 6 for them. The thing that with this is, look, I don't think it's going to affect Penrith too much. They're 6 points clear of second place at the moment. There's 5 games in hand. Worst case scenario, should they lose all their games without their halves, they'll probably finish second. I still don't think that's going to happen. I think they wrap up the minor premiership.
The other thing is they've only lost 2 games the whole season, both of them to the Eels. So I think they're probably going to be okay. And like you say, even if they drop a couple of those, they're going to be well clear and have some rested halves, hopefully, when they get into the finals. And maybe it could be Sean O'Sullivan and Nathan there as to take that on at the start of the finals, depending on how Luai comes back from his MCL. You think they might ease? I'd say they'd ease him back in.
Well, they're saying 6 to 8 weeks for Luai, which is pretty standard for a higher grade MCL. You'd want Luai back for the first week of finals, I'd imagine. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, it will be a second chance game. I liked how you alluded to, their 2 losses being to this Parramatta side. We saw Parramatta beat Melbourne earlier in the year. They were doing this last year where they would beat the good sides and lose games that they probably shouldn't. again, outside of our Dave Grohl pretender kind of chat around the Parramatta Eels, you mentioned something which was quite intriguing before the podcast started around. Is there some bad blood between these two sides that actually gives this Battle of the West, some extra intrigue in that a lot of Parramatta players, or a few Parramatta players in RCG, Ryan Madison, were snubbed from the Blues team for game 2.
Yep.
Do you think there is some bad blood between these two teams, or do Parramatta just show up against good teams?
Yeah, well, also that chat leading into game 3 of Campbell Gillard couldn't get a gig either after McLean got injured. So, yeah, whether there is some chat. Well, the chat there was that the Penrith players didn't like him. They didn't want to play with him, and I guess maybe the in-season comp where they seem to lose to the Eels, because I believe they lost them last year as well. There might be a little bit of friendly banter, friendly competition in that, or which probably has led to some words and bad blood. So yeah, maybe it has transitioned a little bit, and that's why the Eels get up for this game and have the Mickey over Penrith. And maybe that's what transpired in the New South Wales camp as well. They've come in and said, "Oh, you boys are real hot all year, except when you play us." And he's probably rubbed a few of them the wrong way.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway,
I like the rhetoric maybe more than
it's an interesting storyline.
I don't know how much truth there is to it. It's probably just rumour mill, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, there's probably too many Penrith players playing for New South Wales in that third game, but. Bygones be bygones.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue that point. I'm not going to argue that point.
Queenslander.
Shut up. Oh boy.
So Sharks Souths, was that a Golden Point game? It must have been.
Yes, but there was the Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders.
Raiders Titans first. The Raiders 12-point winners in that one.
Should have been more. They let them score late.
Did, and
one.
the Joe Tarpany sin, Ben.
Yeah.
This was a classic. The retaliator gets caught. There was a cannonball-esque kind of tackle.
Yeah, it was a bad-looking one. Considering what happened in the Broncos game with Carrigan, we'll get to that. I think Joel was very much Tarpany was very much in his remit. I'd allow a solid I like the Biff days though. I like seeing Dane Gogo hit Matt Burton. That definitely tickles me in the right places.
Oh, I'll call Dane Gogo if I had his number and say Sean likes a few tickles from you, mate.
Yes. A lot of this stuff would get sorted out on the field, I think, and a lot of some of the dumb shit and the dog shots, etc., getting hit off the ball in bygone eras used to get sorted out on the field, if you know what I'm talking about.
But it's not bygone eras. You can't punch people.
Yeah, I know.
I see. I get it. I get it. You're probably more likely to hurt someone long term with a cannonball tackle than by throwing a punch.
Yeah, well, we talk about Hastings. Yeah. He's broken his fibula. He's out for 3 weeks. So. And I must say, a very similar looking tackle. Like you can see why he's pissed. So I'm happy, sorted out on the field. Here's some chin music for you, and away we go. But of course, he gets bitten for it. So he threw the punch.
Yeah,
it would be,
and they lost the penalty as well.
Maybe it would be nice if it was 1992, but unfortunately, it's not. And I think
soft. that was rugby league was good in the 90s.
Yeah. You're really off it this year, aren't you? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I
call it the bumhole league, but I can't do that anymore.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you see a very similar tackle in the Brisbane.
We've talked about
Tigers
how grey
game.
the NRL is. It's so grey.
It is very grey. Before that Tigers upset game, let's talk quickly. Sharks South. Sharks coming out 1 point winner over South Sydney. And again, the league with their suspension of Dale Finucane.
For hitting a guy hard. It
was a head clash. It was a head clash. He did fly out of the line. Obviously, there was intent there. That's why it got given that grade 3 for dangerous contact. However,
Nate Miles would have never played a game in NRL if they had been head clashes.
A lot of people would have struggled. The way that it's adjudicated these days, it was quite nasty looking. The ear, kind of half hanging on of Stephen Crichton.
Did he leave his feet? Because I don't think he did. I think he's...
No, he didn't leave his feet. Monks, maybe
Try
if you can bring it up, if you wouldn't mind. But it's clear that it's the damage to Crichton's ear is from Finucane's head.
Yeah.
It's not a swinging arm. It's not a shoulder charge. It's incidental what the damage is. Now, can you look at the intent from Finucane flying out of the line, like that, and throwing all of his force? Maybe, but probably 5-10 years ago, people will watch this and just say, "Good shot."
Yeah, well, I'd be interested. Does he tuck his head? As in, like, if you're going to headbutt someone, you'd do it with the crown of your head because
he's not trying to headbutt him.
He's not like he's
trying to put a shot on.
Yeah, he does.
He's trying to put a shot on, and the thing that causes the damage is the left side of Finucane's head / cheek, perhaps, on Stephen Crichton's left ear.
Stiff.
It's
if you look at Crichton, he's kind of turning and falling as well. So even before the impact happens,
and we always talk about it. Does the outcome affect?
Head clashes like that.
Ruling
that's accidental. It's not on purpose.
Of course, it's accidental. But if Stephen Crichton's ear doesn't get obliterated in this, do they look at the same? The judiciary, I'd argue they don't.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know with the NRL anymore.
It's hard. It is hard. It is hard to try and make sense of some of these suspensions and the way.
Actually, I think something like that should be sorted out within the game. So, as in, that's it's accidental. Let's penalise that. You got a penalty.
Was not a penalty on the field.
Yeah. So I think you deal with that then, trying to suspend him 2 weeks afterwards because it doesn't help Penrith.
No, it doesn't help Penrith at all.
Yeah.
The teams that get the advantage are the teams that Cronulla play in the next few weeks.
Yes.
I think the only argument they have against Finucane is like it was just way too high. Like the fact that it's a head
it's above the
clash.
shoulders. Like it's bad.
But it's hitting.
Also his tackling technique.
Yeah. And look, I said before it wasn't a swing. Well, maybe there is a swinging arm. The arm doesn't make the contact. But yeah, that's the argument to suspend Finucane for the time that they did.
Yeah, playing devil's
advocate. Yeah. It's hard to make sense of that being 3 weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. And then you look at what Nelson did, and he gets nothing.
We did mention that in the Storm game.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
The Nelson Asafa Solomona.
The Nelson one is way worse than that.
Which goes unpunished. Anyways, let's try and enjoy this game for the product that we get and not the inconsistencies in some of the rulings.
Yeah.
The Tigers provided a massive.
Actually, I just had a thought. 360 doesn't exist if the NRL isn't the way it is.
You ever watched AFL 360 before? It's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's
Would they actually talk about the games that were played?
And it's much less conjecture and argument and Buzz Rothfield, which I tend to enjoy. Poor Buzz, he's on holidays. He wasn't on this week. Would have been an interesting week for Buzz to be on. An intriguing week indeed, for probably more of the wrong reasons.
Let's just talk about this Shark South game because it was a good game of footy. Went to Golden Point. The Souths have been resurgent since Latrell's been back. Unfortunately for them, Latrell couldn't kick straight in this one, missing a few chances at goal. But Nico Hines doing the job and slotting it over to get the win here. What do you think of these two teams? Do you think they can compete with the others, with the resurgent Queensland teams and Penrith, or do you think where do you see them? I don't think Souths have a good enough spine overall with the 4 to potentially win the comp. I think the Sharks with Nico Hines potentially being arguably the buyer of the year with Adam Reynolds. In that conversation, maybe they're more of a dark horse, and I think they can win finals games.
Yep, and I think the latter probably confirms that statement there. Yeah, I think and we saw the way that the Sharks played last week against Penrith. If you want to go off that, they led the first half, needed to play 80 minutes of football, obviously.
Yes, that's true.
Let me also state that obviously it's Penrith's comp to lose this year. That they've been head and shoulders above anyone else in this competition. I could see Cronulla, being competitive at least with them. South with since Latrell's come back, different side. Yeah, different side. Definitely. We saw
he's their magic. He's
unreal, man. He does things that other players just can't do.
Wasn't his best game in this one.
That is true. That is true. But we also have to think about 4 or 5 weeks ago before Latrell come back, the Dragons running in 30 points in in a half. It's not that South Sydney. So South Sydney thereabouts. I think Cronulla could definitely cause Penrith some problems.
What do you think, Alex Johnson? 22 tries so far.
Unbelievable, man. We talk about him every week. He just keeps scoring. He just scored one last night. Just one.
Yeah.
Just one.
5 games to go. Do you think he can get to 30?
No reason why he can't.
I think he'd go pretty close.
Yeah.
And I think he's one behind the Morris brothers from memory.
Both of them?
Yeah, because
combined?
No. One is I think he's
combined.
I can't remember which one. One of them's like 1 ahead, and then the other one I think's like 5 ahead. But he's at like 156, I think, and then in the 10, like 156 to 176, they're all very close.
Okay. So he's going to go past a lot of people soon.
Yes.
It's Josh Morris, who he's now equal with on 158 tries. And then Hazem El Masri, 159. Matt Singh, 159.
Probably get them this year.
You'd think so.
You think so?
Brett Stewart, 163. Terry Lamb, 164. Andrew Eddinghausen, ET, 165. He probably goes into the top 5 try scorers this year.
Yeah, and then if he plays next year, he might be second.
Yep. I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that's a reasonable statement. We have spoken a little bit about it on this podcast. Barring some kind of catastrophe to his career, he is going to be the NRL's leading try scorer.
Yeah, he might not go down.
Not just the NRL, the New South Wales Rugby League, ARL, NRL,
ever.
Yeah.
He might not ever go down as the greatest winger of all time, but he's the greatest finisher by far. Yeah,
in fact. I don't know. There may be an argument against that as well, but credit to Alex Johnson. It's an unbelievable career that he's amassed already before he's even turned 30, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Question for you, Peppy: who's number 2 in try scoring so far this year?
This year. Is it Jeremiah Nanai after this game?
Yes, it is. He's at 16. He's equal with Corey Oates.
That is wild. Wild.
He's still 6 behind Alex Johnson, but yes.
He's fucking 19. He's 19. This bloke's going to score more tries this year than his age.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
He has had some kind of season.
Played great for Queensland as well.
He was very good for Queensland. He's been very good for fantasy / super coach.
That Cowboys team, they've found 3 different forwards that played 3 or 4 forwards that played really well for Queensland, and they're just out of nowhere.
Unbelievable. Check the tape. We say a lot of dumb shit on the podcast.
No
worries, but no one gave him a chance. Look, that wasn't outside of the zeitgeist of the time, if you will. That was the public opinion that the Cowboys might struggle a little bit. Yeah, getting zeitgeist into an NRL chat on the podcast. They've just played above and beyond what anyone expected. This inexperienced, we were worried about their spine. Drinkwater's been playing unbelievably. Dearden's had a breakout year, and Chad Townsend a bit of a fuck you from Chad Townsend as well, saying, "Hey, I'm pretty handy."
Well, I think this young forward pack, and the Dragons Cowboys game just finished, and of course they pumped them. We talked about that. So skipping ahead, but the Cowboys with that young new guys coming in the forward pack, I think it's givable. Using the usual stereotypical chat is they've set the platform. They've got the go forward there, and that makes it really easy for those guys in the spine to do what they need to do. And then they can feed guys like Valentine Holmes on the edges, and they can wreak havoc. They really needed to find those young boys in that forward pack and to step up, and they've blown up. And where are they now? They're second.
Yeah, and we looked at this team that just smoked the Dragons 34-8. The fact that Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow doesn't even make your starting outside backs,
it comes off the bench.
It's a great it's a great team, and obviously we've seen Jeremiah Nanai, we've seen Ruben Cotter, we've seen Tom Gilbert all develop a lot as players, and it's a formidable pack. I want to pose a question to you that we just did with Cronulla and that we just did with South. Can these guys bother Penrith? Come October.
How many of them are still there that played in the Cowboys final?
From 2016, very few.
Yeah.
Very few.
Jason,
I think Tamalolo. I think Cole Felt would have been in that.
Was Holmes playing for?
Nope. No, he wouldn't have been. I think it's two.
So
I think it's Cole Felt and Jason Tamalolo.
So
off the top of my head.
So I don't want to completely rule them out, but I'd say inexperience maybe means they won't win the comp. Kind of like how the Penrith that year where they
dominated, and then Melbourne came out.
Maybe a little bit of a choke.
Finals footy is just something different.
Especially coming up against Cameron Smith, and he's played in every final for the last 20 years. So, I think there may be a year they need probably that loss in the final period where they go, oh shit, we got to take this serious next year. We're going to, give them that chip, give them that experience they need, and then next year they're going to be an absolute dominant force. But I think it's a great segue here that Brisbane also kind of have the same sort of, they found the young forwards. Talk about Pat Carrigan, talk about man of the series winning the Wally Lewis medal for fucking Queensland. He thought it was a complete surprise, but big minutes played, big games, and had trying to play a big game against the Tigers here, but they lost here. But then the cannonball tackle, I think, was potentially the chat on report. I'm not sure what that's gonna look like. So Brisbane did lose 32-18, and they lost. They let in some easy tries towards the end of the game in this one to blow the score out. But yeah, this cannonball tackle on the ankle and then rolls him over, and broken shin bone there for Hastings.
I don't know if that is a true cannonball tackle.
Hip drop. It ended up being more hip drop.
Yeah, exactly. I guess so. Yeah. It's that's incidental. I think obviously we're thinking of Jackson and Hastings breaking his leg there, but Pat Carrigan doesn't mean to drop onto his leg there. He's trying to drop his weight, and again we speak about the hip drop tackle and how it's kind of been demonised. Although it may be just good tackling technique, you're trying to get gravity down. Unfortunately, a leg might get caught up in it at some stage.
Yeah, well, they've been trying to get rid of the hip drop this year after what I think it was Josh Maguire did last year, where I ended up with a similar sort of injury, I believe, as well to the lower leg. They don't like that where the guy is kind of on the weight on the back legs, and then the guys over the top roll him over. Because it's high chance of injuries to the legs with something like that. So, I think Carrigan might be in trouble and miss a couple of weeks for that one.
It's a shame. It's not.
What did Josh get? I think Josh got
Maguire last year, 5 weeks.
5 weeks, yeah.
I think he got 5 weeks from memory.
Yeah, it was a long suspension. So, Carrigan's having an excellent year for Brisbane. They played pretty poorly in this Tigers game. Tigers, I think, after the week they had been stiffed, they've come out swinging, and that's Noddy's first win as well.
It's interim.
And we kind of missed it with the break, but Tim Sheens announces head coach till 2025, where he's then going to hand over to Benji. And Benji Marshall quit all his media duties during the week too to focus on this. Probably going to be sick of getting asked questions about Tigers being a head coach. But him and Farah are going to be assistants this year, kind of getting the band back together. And it'd be quite interesting to see what that looks like. So
it's kind of old news. We do apologise. It was announced nearly 2 weeks ago, but we haven't been here. We haven't discussed. We've spoken about it on the podcast before? Would Tim Sheens, be a viable coach? At his age, he's not any older than Wayne Bennett is, and arguably one of we've had him in our top.
He's got an excellent record.
Our top 3 NRL coaches of all time. Is he going to be able to turn this club around? Who have and it's been dismal really for the last 10 years.
And you got to also remember, and in modern NRL era too, because Tim Sheens has been in England for many, many years. Different kind of game, the way they play it to the way we do.
His last premiership was 05 with the Tigers. Yep. With Benji as a 19-year-old, however old he was in 2005.
Yeah, a lot has transpired, and unsure of how much will transition. I guess that's probably why he's included those legends of the club as well there, to probably get some of that new ideas and thinking into the club, because they weren't too bad when Benji went back to the Tigers and played with Robbie, better than where they are now, and whether Tim Sheens just focuses on being the voice in the room of the leadership part of it, getting the boys G'd up. and ready to play football. It's an interesting. I think the issues of the Tigers is less with the players and the coaching, probably more with the management and the board. Yeah, I think
agree
a lot.
100%.
They've probably got too many former players with too many voices there. Than actual people that understand how to run a proper fucking football club. Anyway,
coming from us, many years of experience in running rugby league clubs, but
we've probably got the same amount of experience as they do. So let's put it that way.
Hey, the results speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They haven't won shit for ages. We haven't had listeners for ages. Doesn't make any difference.
We haven't lost anything either. So our record technically better than this.
Can't lose if you don't have an opponent.
Exactly.
The Dogs did beat the Knights. Both these teams won't be playing finals. Corey Waddell copped a 5-week suspension for a
incidental.
I thought possibly incident. I think eye gouge.
Big Tano said there was nothing in it. So.
He did say that after the game. He was very animated last week when it did happen. I suppose your hand shouldn't be there in the first place. Is maybe the counter to that.
Yes, yeah. Too high there.
Dogs have turned it around since the Trent Barrett sacking.
Go have a look at Adokar and what Matt Burton have been doing. I think
the New South Wales selectors may have missed one there. Josh Adokar last week scored a hat trick and he did the call me celebration, which was obviously directed at the New South Wales selection panel.
Exactly, putting the phone down and stomping on it. Yes, and did he get a double in this as well? So
did he score 2 today?
Against the Knights, I thought you got that there. Did he score?
He did not score.
Oh no, he did he got the ball in like broken play and kicked it across the field for the other winger to score a try. Yeah, so right. Adokar doing everything at the moment. Yes.
The Fox, officially the fastest man in league as well. Last week on that intercept try, clocked at 38 k's an hour, something like that. 38.7, something like that.
At Brad Fittler. Right. And how much more do you want to talk about the Dragons getting dicked?
0. Absolutely 0. I did say at the start of the year I would take a gentleman's 10th, I believe. And it's looking a lot like a gentleman's 10th or 11th this year.
They've avoided the spoon. That's the main thing.
Thank God for Ben Hunt and the season that he's put together. And shame on you last year for saying that he was the most overpaid player in the NRL. He's a Dally M shout.
He is as a halfback.
Maybe
we should play hooker.
If you win a Dally M and you're playing halfback, are you overpaid?
Yeah, in a shit team when no one else is good.
Settle.
It was like, who's going to get the 3 votes this week? Fuck, we only got Ben Hunt. We're going to give it to him.
We're talking about the West Tigers a minute ago, and now you want to throw shit out to talk about my Tier 3 rugby league team in the Dragons. No, I think the Dragons don't play finals this year. I think the Chooks are way too good, and the Raiders have a pretty favourable run home.
Yeah, they're only a top 8 competition on the way home is Penrith this week.
And before this round started, I thought Parramatta had a very hard run home. I thought they might be in a bit of strife. I'm glad I didn't say that on the podcast, although I am doing it now. But I think they'll be just fine.
Yes. Yep. I just want to quickly touch on the Cowboys. They versed Penrith in the last round of the season, so that will be a very good indicator.
It will be a good indicator. It's in Townsville, and we're not going to have Cleary or Luai in that game.
Yeah.
So who knows? And that's one thing maybe as well with the Cowboys. Do you get a little bit of the AFL kind of influence, and we'll talk about the AFL in just a sec, in that it's hard for these out of Melbourne teams in the AFL or the out of Sydney teams. Is it hard for them to go down and win the big day in Sydney? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Outside of Melbourne, they didn't seem to struggle too much. But
no, Melbourne's never had any dramas actually with it. That's a good point.
So there might be nothing to it.
But that's probably due to the fact they've had a couple of mortals planned for them in that time frame, and the coach is in that conversation of goat chat as well. So yeah.
Eddie Jones.
Let's wrap the rugby league up. Eddie Jones for some rugby chat. The English tour down here, they did beat Australia in that. Eddie Jones, of course, being their coach, had some pretty interesting banter with some of the crowd. The crowd were getting stuck into him about being a traitor, and he was going Turn around
Doesn't
and
like
he was
that.
like, "What the fuck you say to me?" He was getting stuck in. I was like, "Yeah."
It was a member of the crowd, one member, not
trying to get his TikTok. That's what he's doing, and
Eddie sprayed him.
Yeah, definitely, and well with it.
I think it happened a couple of times because I saw another video floating around,
Yeah.
like a different situation where someone else did it as well.
Yeah, so I wonder if Eddie is not trying to redo his image, but whether he wants something more closer to home. Because during the week he got caught up with the Win news group, I believe, and they were asking him questions, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd love an NRL job. I'd really like to coach Souths."
Really?
Yes. So that created big headlines. Then, of course, they had to go talk to the South's current head coach,
Jason Demetre.
yes, who's taken over from Wayne and having a bit of an up and down time since Bennett has left. And she's like, "Yeah, well, the job's not open. I've got it."
Yeah,
so
that's fair enough too.
yeah, but I wonder if Russell Crowe, what he thinks there. I don't think the direct transition from rugby to rugby league is going to be that easy, but maybe the same thing we're talking about Tim Sheens. Maybe Eddie's there for more strategy and the core kind of leadership mention, and then he's got strong assistants. He needs to bring in probably strong rugby league assistants, not rugby guys, and maybe it works, but I don't see the transition here.
I think it's way more noise than news. I think Jason Demetre's job is safe for now.
Yeah, just a good way to get rugby chat on.
Unlike some other NRL coaches.
But there's still plenty of open jobs because nothing official for the Bulldogs yet. And who was the other one that doesn't have a coach yet?
Warriors?
Warriors, yes. I don't think they've announced anyone either. No, I don't think they so. No, because they got Stacey running around at the moment.
Is he confirmed for next year? He's just interim.
Just interim, yeah. So, actually, no, they did. They signed. They got the Penrith assistant that isn't the one that's potentially going to the Bulldogs. Remember that?
Hard to keep up.
Yeah. So yes, and then what happens at Newcastle Titans and Dragons in the coming weeks for potential.
How
coaches
is Anthony Griffin under the microscope? Like they've performed better than they were meant to do this year.
True, but they also just sacked two of their assistant coaches. So I'm just following the bouncing ball. If they're going, why are they then keeping the head coach? So anyway,
Andrew Webster.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Uncle's cousin. Yeah.
Of not related to James Webster fame.
Yeah.
Directly.
I do remember that. Yes.
The other thing in the rugby I did see, not that we follow rugby at all, Ireland beat the All Blacks
I did see this
twice, I think, in New Zealand.
Yes. Ew. Changing the guard? Methinks not.
Interesting.
Not.
Roger played on that too, I believe.
He did, and there's a few leagueies. I don't think he has a whole heap of influence in that team. I think he's coming off the bench and plays limited minutes.
Very limited.
Yep. All right. Should we talk some AFL?
Might as well. Do you want to start with, go, sorry.
No, that's a foghorn.
Still needs work.
I didn't even get to do it for our rugby league segment either because we went straight into it.
Yeah, that's good. The siren, not so much. Needs work.
That's it. I'm having a beer.
Yeah, do you want to talk the game that just ended, Richmond-Brisbane? Because it actually ended up quite interesting because Richmond were down, I think, 72-36 at half-time.
Yeah, massive comeback there
so
from the Richmond Tigers.
Yeah, they
keeps their season alive, really.
Definitely. Well, they scored 70 points in the second half to Brisbane's 20. And the Lions probably shit the bed. No better way to say that, giving up that big of a lead in that one. And that's kind of disappointing. And it goes back to what I think I've been saying with the Lions is they have these kind of games where they just get stuck in something or the opposition changes something and they just don't like it and can't do anything about it. They're just missing something. I don't know what it is, but the Lions, to me, they're still missing whatever the X is, and these veteran clubs seem to be able to run through them when they need to and get big wins. So I will stick to my previous comment that I don't think the Lions can win the comp with the current squad.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's always been the Mickey on these Brisbane Lions is that they're a highly talented group, but they are struggling to beat some of these. Not that Richmond's having a stellar year, but they're it's essentially the same playing group that's won 3 flags. Put away these better teams.
And when you look at the Lions, McStay, Daniel Rich and Zorko all off contract at the end of the year without re-deals.
Is that window closing a little bit? We speak about the premiership window.
I really don't know.
Because it was talking about
Well, Lachie Neale's
last
signed
season, like whether or not their window was starting to close.
And we were talking about them being last year in that window now.
Yeah.
So you only get the window for...
Yeah, well, they signed Lachie Neale for the next, 6 years?
Yeah, it's a long one.
So potentially they've got to try and keep that window ajar at least, and they just need something. They need something. I can't put my finger on it, but they just lack something to put them over the edge. And whether that's a young fella that comes through the club when they get another new draft class, whether there's a few guys that maybe aren't given max effort that they need to move on to then, find whatever that thing is. I don't know. Or whether it's just they got to trade here to go out and get the guy, sign a big signing from somewhere. I don't know what it is.
I used to think that the thing that they were lacking was a key forward and getting Joe Danaher across and him maybe not quite having the same impact that he did as an Essendon Bomber, obviously injury riddled and the rest of it. I thought that might have solved a few of their problems.
Rayner's been good this year. Hipwood's been back and McStay. They've kind of, as a group, doing enough.
Their small forwards are excellent.
Yeah,
I think they have 3 guys in the top 10 goal scorers in the league.
Yeah, Bailey, Zorko, and
Cameron,
yeah.
Not Zorko.
No, sorry. Who am I thinking of? Don't know. McCarthy. Am I thinking of McCarthy?
I don't know. I will chase up that claim that they have 3 in the top 10.
I don't know, maybe they lack some size. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me go here. Goal scorers. No, they definitely don't have 3 in the top 10. Charlie Cameron is in the top 10 at the moment. But then I was way off here.
Yeah.
That's why we have fucking laptops in front of us, bruh. Because we can fuck shit up.
Danaher's there. I was thinking McCarthy. Yeah.
Lincoln McCarthy.
And then Bailey's under that.
So they've got 3 guys in the top 20.
30,
Let's
40,
go
30, 40.
Let's 20.
It's a long list. Anyway, they miss something and they got to figure out what that is. That's where I'm at. And those guys, those established clubs, the veteran clubs, they're still kicking along. Look at Geelong. Are Geelong still, are they top of the table at the moment?
Yep, they sure are.
Yeah, and Dad's Army getting the job done.
Dad's club.
Anyway, let's go back to Friday. Yeah. Go back to Friday and let's talk about the Demons riding the ship a little bit here against a Dockers team that has been very, very good this year. And, they put 40 past them.
That's exactly what they did. They right the ship after, an up and down last sort of 6 weeks. We were speaking about this team earlier in the year as, like the Penrith of the NRL, who can beat the Melbourne Demons. And then, we've had a little bit of...
We're talking about undefeated seasons, bro.
Exactly. And then they've come sort of crashing to earth. But they're
perfect. I think it's also perfect timing for it. They needed the rally check now, get good, run it into the finals.
Freo in Perth, 60,000 in there on Friday night, and they put a clinic on them. May and Lever, we kind of talk ad nauseum about this Melbourne backline, but they just completely shut down Tabernar and Rory Lobb. I think they conceded 5 goals in the entire game. They were looking like the Melbourne of last year on Friday night.
Yeah, and really needed to send a statement. So, what can you say? They're going to go into the finals as a big time contender. And we mentioned Dad's Army. That's probably their biggest opposition at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. And we'd like to talk about tiers in all the sports that we like to follow. I think tier 1 is Geelong and Melbourne.
Agree.
And then we've got all these, we just spoke a lot about Brisbane. They're in that tier 2. You Collingwood, who we'll get to in a sec, who have won 10 in a row, they're in that tier 2.
The year that Collingwood have had, considering the conversations we were having a couple of weeks ago, the shit show that was a club, and considering Grundy hasn't been playing for them.
Yeah, they're missing essentially their best player with all this going on. And the Sydney Swans, they're probably in that tier 2 as to, premiership contenders. But
I could put Collingwood, Swans, Lions and Dockers all in that tier 2.
Yeah. Yep, I'd agree with you there. Speaking of Collingwood, they do go 10 in a row yesterday with a 6-point win.
You skipped over Bradshaw there, bro.
Brayshaw. Yeah, did sign a 6-year deal.
Another massive deal.
My apologies. Another one. And Petrarca and Clayton Oliver are both locked in for 6 and 8 years. Was it 9 years for Clayton Oliver?
Yeah, a long time. My question for you is, does that mean there's not money elsewhere? Do you think they're going to be top heavy and have to be young elsewhere? Like that back line we're talking about. Like, they got to run out of money at some
Are they
point.
going to be able to pay guys and keep them under the salary cap?
Yeah.
Good question. Good question. I think in an AFL list, you probably can go heavy at your Bulls and try to save yourself a bit of money elsewhere. Again, we're talking about Brisbane and how they lack possibly a good, true tall key forward. Melbourne doesn't have a good true.
Well, they
brought in Ben Brown.
But he's been injured heaps. Yeah,
and he hasn't been that. He hasn't been that.
I don't think he's played a lot in recent weeks either. So,
what were we talking about? Brayshaw. The thing is, outside of salary cap kind of stuff as well, it's so much stock to put in 3 guys. You're pretty much saying for the 2020s, this is our midfield.
Well, they've gone. We've won 1 comp. Let's see if we can win 2, 3, 4 more. We'll lock them in and see how many comps we can.
It's a lot of stock to put into 3 guys. And look, I think Petrarca and Oliver, their resumes kind of speak for themselves. Angus Brayshaw, obviously his brother's doing a lot for the team that they beat in Freo, but a very talented player in his own right. Yeah, the last piece of that puzzle is signing Max Gawn long term. Interesting. It's wild, and we do speak about a lot on this podcast about the rise of the long contract that we've seen in the AFL in particular, but also in the NRL. We've seen a little bit in American sport.
Yeah, and potentially it's maybe short-time pain for the Ds. If they can get through it and keep guys together, then new TV deals, new money, salary cap increases. They actually get more room, but they've already got these guys locked up on the last deals. Set salary limit, so they've got maybe extra room there. So it kind of works in both their favours potentially.
Mate, inflation. You seen what fucking
exactly.
Cost to fill your car with a tank of fuel at the moment. Jeez, maybe that's what they're banking on is that the average contract in a few years' time is $2 million or something.
Exactly, and they've got them locked up for $1 million for a foreseeable future. They'll be like, oh, we're happy with that. Anyway, Collingwood. Get past Port.
Flag pies, pains me to say it as a Carlton fan, but they're playing some good footy, 10 in a row for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, is that all post the Penanbury stuff that happened?
What stuff?
All the media beat up with...
De Goey?
De Goey, yes, sorry.
No, so De Goey was in the bye round, which was 5 weeks ago. So they've been able to string all of this together.
I think that's pretty good. Leading up to it, hasn't broken the camel's back, as we've been talking about Manly earlier. And then past that, they've has it joined the club together a little bit. Focused them against the outside pressures. They've focused on themselves, and they've gone out and just played good footy. I think Dacos is probably a good reason for why they've been the way they're playing as well as they have been.
Unbelievable for a 19-year-old to go out there and play the way that he has.
All-Australian?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to say not quite an All-Australian.
Hater.
I'm not a hater. He's playing unbelievable football. He should be the rising star in the AFL this year. He will be an All-Australian, no doubt. He is an unbelievably talented footy player for him to go in as a 19-year-old and dominate the way that he has this year. Having said all that, I don't know if he'll crack that All-Australian team. I don't think he will.
Well, Collingwood up into third place there. They're equal with Melbourne. So they've, definitely been on a very good run of late. And as we mentioned before, missing Grundy as well. So that's pretty good. On the other side, Port Adelaide, are they done?
Yeah, that's the line through them.
Yeah, yep. They're 12 points behind St Kilda and 8. Yeah, I think their poor start has ended up hurting them. They had a pretty good middle season, but they needed to win more than they lost. And unfortunately, they're losing... again, another close game to Collingwood, season I think done.
Yeah, I think it was done last week. Obviously, we didn't pod last week with that loss to Geelong, but they're not coming back from that now. There's only 3 games left, so they're done. They're done.
So what does that leave? Does that mean
There's one. I think there's.
What about Bulldogs? Richmond and Bulldogs?
Yeah, Richmond and Bulldogs are 9th and 10th as it stands. I think they're still alive. I think the Gold Coast Suns are done. I think
They're mathematical. I think
they're mathematical. Yeah, the Suns are mathematical, but the Dogs, Tigers, and Saints, it will be a 3-way race for that last spot.
I think they've got to win all their games, and everyone else has to lose theirs for them to have a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Exactly. That's why I said mathematical, but unlikely. The Sydney Derby, Swans.
The Battle of the Bridge, bruh.
Yes. I'm not allowed to say that, am I? The Derby. It's used elsewhere. Or the Derby.
The Derby. I can't even remember how they say it over there.
Yeah.
Weird Western Australians.
Yes. But Dicking from Sydney Swans for
Clinic.
GWS. Yeah, Clinic. So
Swans are good. Giants are bad.
Not much more right back there.
No.
St Kilda Hawthorn, another close match there. St Kilda winning by 12.
But that was must win for the Saints.
Yes.
They've really dropped off a little bit in the last few weeks, but that well and truly keeps their.
Well, I think in our preview we didn't have them making the 8, so they're kind of fighting their way in, which is what we thought they'd do. They'd be in that pack that would fight their way in, but they've got the lead on that currently. But they have two very good teams in Richmond and Bulldogs, like good lists right behind them. So.
And how's this? If they lost against Hawthorn, it would have been bad news for Saints fans because their last 3 games are Geelong, Brisbane, Sydney.
Yeah.
So if I was a betting man, and I am, I suspect that St Kilda miss out, and I think Richmond have had a massive win today over the Brisbane Lions. I think it'll be out of Brisbane and the Western Bulldogs for that last spot.
So Brisbane next week have got Port, then the Hawks, and then Essendon.
Go,
Dogs.
So was that Richmond, sorry?
Yeah, that was Richmond.
I thought it
I thought you said Brisbane.
I probably did say Brisbane, actually.
Sorry, confused the shit out of it. Yeah.
So Port at Adelaide,
Yeah.
Hawthorn at the G, and Essendon at the G.
All
That's
very winnable.
Definitely winnable. Definitely win, especially those two
Doggies?
games.
Yeah, Doggies, they've got the Dockers, Marvel, Giants at Marvel, and then they've got the Hawks down in Tassie.
So outside of that Fremantle game, also very winnable. Yeah, you heard it here on the. Sorry, Saints fans. Sorry, Port St Kilda fans. I think it's definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah, well, and I for those teams in the 8, that Richmond team sneaking in there as 8 will cause a lot of problems, I think, for some of them. Because they are, like we've talked about, a veteran club. They can definitely pull a game out of their ass.
Lions, yeah.
Yeah, they know how to win big football games. That's what I'm getting at.
Both these clubs. We've got a club that was in the grand final last year in the Western Bulldogs that won the whole thing back in 2016, and then we've got the dynasty Richmond Tigers. Both of those teams, I probably wouldn't want to play them. In an elimination final.
Also for Richmond, what's the recent Dusty chat?
Haven't seen too much
because I think he had a
there
little injury, and then he was, trying to take that break, and then the media kind of trying to get the inside scoops outside. That's where we left it off. But
there was so much chat maybe a month ago, like Dusty's gone, he's gone, he's
done. He doesn't really need to
Sydney, this and that. But there hasn't been a whole lot that I've seen, at least in my news feed.
Maybe the fact that he's hurt and they've basically told leave Dusty the fuck alone. That's why there isn't anything recent. I think it was hammy, so it'd be interesting. Again, 3 weeks. Is that a perfect time? Sneak in the 8, get Dusty back. I'd be worried.
Shout out, we did miss from today's game Noah Cumberland, the fella that unfortunately played on last week in that drawed game against Fremantle. He kicked 5 goals straight today. Redemption.
Wow. Yeah.
Redemption for the young bloke.
Yes. Where do we get to? Geelong Bulldogs. So speaking of one of those teams, the Bulldogs losing by almost 30 to Geelong here, and Selwood's 350th. I think that's the most wins by a captain as well for him.
Yep, most wins as captain. Shortest career span ever to get to 350, I saw. 15 years and some kind of concoction of days.
Health, bro. Health and consistency, I'd say.
And the draft class as well of because we saw Pendlebury and his 350th last week. Yep. Joel Selwood obviously and Pendlebury in the same draft. I'll get it up here actually. One of the best AFL drafts of all time, if not the best. Monks, any stats on this game or Dusty news?
Well, no real Dusty news.
Okay.
Nothing recently. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about Geelong cemented themselves as number one here. Kicking, they've got Cameron and we're kicking goals like crazy. Hawkins, they're just dominating up front.
How's this 2006 draft? Bryce Gibbs was the number one overall. Travis Boak, Joel Selwood, Nathan Brown, retired now. James Frawley, Jack Rewalt, Sean Grigg. Some unbelievable names to come out of it. Tom Hawkins, Josh Kennedy, key forwards. Basher Hawley, Todd Goldstein. It's a pretty impressive draft class, 2006.
Yeah.
Finish here, do you think Geelong can win the comp?
Not only do I think they can win it, I think they are probably the favourites to win it for good reason. We like talking AFL versus NRL here. The AFL, we've said it all year, it seems to be a little bit more open-ended than the NRL.
Well, I was going to say for Geelong, I think they've been quietly going about their work. All the things we've talked about in the potty in this season, nothing's been about Geelong. They've just been quietly going away, winning football games, and got to the top. There've been too many stories in the other clubs, and they've gone moving up and down. The rise of the Dockers, etc. They're the storylines, whereas Geelong's just gone out there and done Geelong things. Yeah, they're top of the table,
and that's what it is. It's like a Melbourne Storm kind of esque vibe from Geelong. This older playing group that just everyone expects to do well, and they're like, oh yeah, you look at it with 3 weeks to go, and they go, oh yeah, they're fucking top of the table.
Yeah.
Whereas all the flag pies chat and the flag mantle and the resurgence of Carlton and the rest of it.
Buying grand final tickets. Yeah.
Exactly, the buying of grand final tickets and losing to the Adelaide Crows, etc., etc. People tend to, at least from the way I've interpreted it, like to talk about some of those storylines. But the fact of the matter is, this Geelong football team is the best in the comp and could very well win the flag this year.
Well, you gave us a segue. Carlton losing to the Crows.
Now, it was my last game of footy yesterday here in AFL Canberra.
What were you playing for?
Rezzies. For me?
Yeah.
Why was I playing?
I thought you were playing for the Spoon.
Oh, it was actually the first grade game. I was playing in the Reggies. We had second last wrapped up.
Avoided. Right.
Unfortunately, first grade did get the wooden spoon. We won by 227 points. Just quietly.
How many did you kick?
I kicked 0.
How many behinds?
0 goals, 0. 0 goals, 0 for myself here. In AFL Canberra, Reggie's obviously a high, standard of footy. Yes, of what were we talking about? Carlton. I had a few beersies last night to celebrate the wrapping up of this season, and I only saw bits and pieces of this.
Yes.
And my recollection is also
lots of swearing,
bits and pieces. Bad loss. You'd expect to go and beat Adelaide, and Carlton love going win loss. The rest of it. They can't win the comp this year, I don't think.
No.
They can't win the comp this year. It's nice that they'll be playing finals footy.
Can they miss the 8? I'm looking at it now.
No, I also don't think no. Look, they're so far. They're 8 points clear of Richmond, aren't they? 6 points.
6 point clear, but they're 8 clear of the Dogs. So they lose all their matches though.
Of course, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. If
It's a big if.
Luckily, they go win loss. They're coming off a loss, so they should go 2-1 to finish the season.
What's their run home?
Ooh.
It is hard. Brisbane,
Lions,
in Brisbane, Melbourne at the G, Collingwood at the G. There'll be 90,000 there for that Collingwood game too.
It'll be a very Blues thing if they start off well. The first time they've won games to start a season and then missed it.
For 10 years, the first time that they did not go 0-2 for the first 2 games in 10 years.
Yeah, we're worried about St Kilda not making the 8.
Yeah, you might need to find a good scalper for those grand final teams. I agree. I think they're probably safe, but they have the worst run home. I think of everyone we've talked about.
They win one of those games, they're safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have to win one of those games. So, absolutely guarantee. If they don't win any of them, then they're mathematically putting themselves in the conversation for one of those other 2 teams that we just mentioned before to sneak up and, well, there 3, even if St Kilda wins a game, to push them down and put them in striking distance.
They beat Collingwood round 23.
Yeah. Ooh. Big call.
Saying it now.
Well, yeah.
And Brisbane aren't fucking much top up there to go, but they never lose.
We just created Pepe's nightmares. Let's then talk about the Suns and Eagles, who played in a high-scoring, very close match here.
I wish my nightmares only revolved around football.
What do you think the Suns getting a win here against the Eagles, who had a bit of a resurgence getting their guys back? Will, I believe, avoid the spoon that's been locked up by North Melbourne.
No, well, there's 3 games to go. You never know. You never know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. You
both on 8
are,
points.
I think it's a correct statement.
Yes.
But we talk about mathematics and
True.
I don't know. Suns win by 3 points. They've won a lot of close games this year. I said before, I don't think they play finals football.
I think they're exactly where we thought they'd be.
Yep.
Eagles, had a way bigger falling off than we thought, but now getting a bit healthier. They're playing better, but also, we talked about Brisbane Tigers. Essendon are going to put almost 50, I think, on Norths, who, as we mentioned, most likely going to get the spoon here. Had a lot of... They've been in and out of the media, of course, about potential players fucking off elsewhere and not wanting to play for Norths and what that's going to mean for the club going forward. But, good win there for the Bombers. Jimmy on the end of the table.
Happy with that.
Turns a disastrous season into a disappointing season.
And
I think they did that a few weeks ago. They've won. They're 5 out of 6, I think, their last 6 games, the Bombers.
Well, I think they're also getting their big guys healthy as well, like their big names, which helps. Healthy clubs helps. The only other thing I saw AFL related this week was Clarkson has had his 3rd interview with the Giants. So whether Alexander Clarkson goes there as potential replacement head coach for GWS. Interesting,
because a lot of the chat was around going to a big Melbourne club around Alistair Clarkson.
Don't know. There hasn't really been any other chat about coaching in Melbourne recently, though.
No.
Whether that comes post-season where they do their reviews and then the guys get moved on. Think of two of these guys currently on the screen, whether that conversation there gets in North Melbourne. Is it Nobles in North Melbourne? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We already spoke about him getting the axe, did we not? It's not in the last 2 weeks.
I can't remember. Maybe.
I think we already spoke about it.
Yeah. So they're of course looking for coach, but Clarkson to GWS they seem pretty hot and heavy for each other. AFL done? Okay. Bombers going to win this game with just under 3 minutes left.
Yep. I concur.
I think so.
Commonwealth Games. It's not quite the Olympics. It's not quite nothing. No. Are we interested? Are we not? Interesting point from you there, Shauna, during the week. Unless you watch a lot of Channel 7, you probably wouldn't even know that this is on.
You're correct. Yeah, not a lot of beat up, and probably because also it's not here. Because the last one being in Brisbane. Gold Coast. Sorry. Close enough.
Titans, Broncos, same shit.
Yeah.
No.
Go on, then.
No, I was definitely not going to say what I was going to say.
All right. It's not here. It's in England, isn't it? It's in Birmingham. Yeah.
Had to step up. I think it was meant to be in South Africa. They had 4 years to prepare for this one rather than the normal 7 or 8.
I think that's probably more to do with how that country's going than.
Yeah, England's sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Weather, it's fucking hot at the moment. Jesus.
Heat wave. Oh, it's fucking 35 degrees. 35. I'm melting. I'm melting. Oh, it was Russell Brand.
That's terrible.
I know that's not terrible because you're laughing.
Yes, I know. Either way, Commonwealth Games is on. We are defending champions, that being the Australians, having...
Yeah, is there a champions of the Commonwealth Games? Yes, we have top
most
of the
gold
medal
medals. Fuck
tally.
yeah, top of the medal tally.
Wins a
Definitely.
win.
Does anyone give a fuck?
We do.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Why
Because
not?
I think we've alternated with England. England won it in 20... What's that?
14.
14?
Glasgow.
Yeah, and then 2010 in Delhi, we were winners and India was second. And Yes.
Asking to work here, Monk's going to get all of the
I
last
remember
Commonwealth
looking at
Games
this. I think-
medal tallies up.
Yeah, I think India beat England only on golds, not on totals. They had...
Well, that's how it works. It works off gold.
Yes, works on golds.
Hang on. So, which one are we talking about?
You got Glasgow up there, so
Yeah.
no, that's getting bad there, isn't it? How did it pan out in Glasgow 2014?
Yep. So England won it with 58 golds. Australia came second, 49 golds.
Diesel.
Canada.
We doubled our
medal
medal tally essentially in Brisbane. So
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. Same place.
Brisbane going to host the Olympics, bro. They're going to host the Olympics 2032.
Yeah, I know.
Fun to all take the kids.
I guarantee there'll be events in the Gold Coast. And 2010 was
Oh, we're going back to 2010.
Where the fuck was 2010?
Delhi.
2006?
Dun, dun, dun.
No, 2006.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
I went to it.
Yeah.
98, Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, yes.
Had a men's cricket tournament, as we will talk about in 1 second. Australia
won.
medal tally there.
Yep, 74. India did come second, 38 as host nation. And England came in at 37.
Yeah, in third position.
Third position.
Yeah, which is quite interesting because currently with the 3 days of events that we've talked about, Australia sitting on the top, closely followed, I believe, by England.
New Zealand.
Actually, no,
New
you
Zealand.
are right. New Zealand there, and then the Indians, I think, were in ninth. So they've only got one medal so far.
Yeah, they're on the same amount of gold as the big powerhouse Bermuda.
Yep. I mean, first couple of days has all been swimming, which is obviously our strong suit. So understandably, we're sitting up there.
Yeah, well, and then what is it? There's the long format running, so the marathons I think have been happening, and the cycling in the dome.
Yes.
Cycling, gymnastics also going on. You know what? I was just saying, do we care about the Commonwealth Games? And I've had a revelation. The Commonwealth Games is the reserve grade of the Olympics. It's like the Rezzies. So if you play Rezzies footy or cricket or whatever, lower grade fucking, hack you are that's listening to this, that still plays organised sport on a weekend, maybe you can think of the Commonwealth Games like the Rezzies of the Olympics. It's pretty,
I suppose so.
it's still okay. It's watchable. There's a few beers had afterwards.
It's a gold medal, but it's not the gold medal.
There's no US. There's no America or China. There's no America or China. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, he was talking before they've put esports in the Commonwealth Games, so
It's
Huh?
I knew they'd get around.
That is confirmed Rezzies. If we're putting esports in this
Hold on,
thing,
hold on,
that's
hold
it.
on,
Nah,
hold on.
boycott.
Hold on.
dude. I'm done. I'm done, bro.
At the moment,
It's
it's
more
an
like an
exhibition.
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 It's got its own branding. It's the Commonwealth Esports
Tournament.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like off the side hanging on, but it's Dota and Rocket League, which probably gets
and
more
eFootball.
And it's Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Probably
ain't got no Americans or Asians in this shit.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a Dota tournament, which is huge in Korea. So yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
But it's Commonwealth.
yeah, it's Commonwealth. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's mate. That's a joke. That's a joke. Esports. Fuck me.
yeah. Well, both those probably get more viewership than a lot of the other sports in the Commonwealth. Unfortunately, I was going to have a history chat. Is the Commonwealth still technically an empire?
Ooh, it used to be called the Empire Games. Did you know that? It
Yes,
used to be
yeah.
called the Empire Games.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know the definition of an empire. I don't frankly care that much.
Yeah, because I was just like, I don't think there's any other empires that exist anymore.
Interesting that it's still got, pretty anti-colonial sentiment these days. Yeah, maybe the Commonwealth Games is in its last legs. Except for the esports.
except for the esports. But yeah.
What's next?
They're all strong.
What's next? The masturbation fucking event? Put me down for a few goals.
Yeah.
Esports, fuck me sideways.
Really hit a nerve there.
Do you know eSport gets more viewership than rugby league does?
Worldwide, yeah, that's surprising. I see it on Sportsbet as well. You can punt on it.
Yeah.
Be easy to match fix that, shouldn't? We're
There has been
controversy,
yeah, definitely.
Oh.
Definitely. There's definitely been cheating as though, but also you're playing a game that's very easily recordable, so it's very easy to be caught too. Yeah.
Esports.
Yeah. There's plenty of match fixing in cricket, isn't there?
There's been occasions where there's been allegations.
Speaking of which, cricket.
Cricket. They've got chicks cricket here. So the first time that there's women's cricket at the Commonwealth Games, there was only ever one male cricket tournament to be held in the Commonwealth Games as a part of 1998 Kuala Lumpur, which we were speaking about prior to recording. England sat out of that one because it interfered with their county year, but then there was legitimate cricket teams in that Commonwealth Games. South Africa won the gold medal, beating Australia, and I think third might have been New Zealand. But if you look at those squads, some elite names, Sean Pollock, Lance Klusener come to mind for the South Africans, and it was kind of in that war ponting kind of era for the Australians. Could we get cricket in the Commonwealth Games for men? And that will probably segue us into our cricket chat.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting. We kind of had a little bit of a conversation about this earlier because they're probably not doing the tournament. If there is a World Cup coming up in a couple of months' time, there's plenty of cricket going on for the men. They've got a full schedule.
Schedule
anyway.
Is unattainable for your top athletes to be.
Yeah, and it's one of the few sports going back to that, USA China chat where like all the major teams are in the Commonwealth.
It's like rugby is kind of similar. They have rugby sevens, but obviously it's a Commonwealth based sport.
Yeah, definitely. That's how it spread, let's say, across going back to Empire chat.
Well, we had to go through our list of cricket playing nations and to think of one that's not in the Commonwealth. I think in the outside of the Commonwealth Games cricket comp, the Netherlands is maybe the front runner.
Yeah. And if the US put the team together, but of course they're not in major kind of competition that we're talking about. So we were having the chat. Then, if you're going to do a tournament like that, how would you make it work? Because again, we'll talk about Stokes in a minute, and we'll talk about how the schedule and these guys are basically playing cricket all year round at this point. How do you work that in and how that fit? And I think the idea we had potentially, following kind of how soccer went in the Olympics, not trying to compete with
Ollie Roos, bro.
Yeah, not trying to compete with like the World Cup and you're a separate event and have like a different take on it. Do the young guys, under 23s through 23s, and then maybe a couple, senior, go the 3 pro guys, your senior guys that can be in the squad to then lead them around, and that I think ends up being more of an interesting competition potentially, and probably something you can fit in around everything else if you want to include in the games. That's how I think you'd make it work, because otherwise you end up with where you're at, where they all go, I need to play some, T20 competitions.
There's no way that with the current schedule for international cricketers that anyone would give 2 fucks about playing in the Commonwealth Games. Yeah. However, if you did make it an under-23s kind of thing or an ability for young players to showcase their skills on an international level, then maybe there is some kind of future or an idea or something worth talking about over a few beers at least. Interesting that they've included, the women's tournament in this one. It's obviously great for the girls to go out there and compete for a gold medal. But obviously with the boys and their schedule, it's in the middle of the English summer.
They're different dance cards, but I also think potentially having it separate with no men's comp. If you do you're in the Commonwealth and you like cricket, having the women's game there kind of lets it show itself as well.
That's right. And it's also the first time ever in a multi-sport event that the girls have more medals than the boys. They pip the boys by 2. Obviously, we've got women's cricket, netball. Boys don't play. There might be a few sort of artistic
gymnastics as well. Synchronized swimming, I think, as well.
Rhythmic gymnastics, even not artistic. I like it. It's great. It's great for the girls. Obviously, you're not going to have your Dave Warners and your Steve Smiths and whoever else comes to mind. Playing in a Commonwealth Games format.
Interesting question for you. In the Commonwealth Games, is there any sports that have professionals playing in them?
Well, a lot of these people are professionals.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, let's go. Like, has a league that have megastars in it? Is what I'm trying to allude to.
Probably not. No. Who? Yeah.
There's no real league type sports. You got netball, basketball.
Yeah, or athletics, basketball.
Basketballs. Yeah,
that's the opposite of cricket. That's where all the shit. Australia and Canada, going at it.
I'm shooting Ben Simmons isn't playing for Australia.
No.
Oh, you got rugby 7.
Australia just won the Asian Cup in basketball. Thon Maker shooting buckets. Rugby 7s is obviously you're probably going to get the elite.
Actually, yeah,
athletes in that.
Yeah, rugby's probably the biggest one for guys.
But in terms of superstar names, no, the most household names that will be competing in the Commonwealth Games for Aussies are probably the swimmers.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Cool.
Anyways, Com Games are on if that's your cup of tea.
Let's keep going with the cricket and get stuck into the cricket. And we alluded to it before. The big news in our little break was Ben Stokes has retired from one-day internationals. He was in all 3 formats. He's decided to step down. He's very much cited, the workload, the full schedule wears him down. And, he definitely wants to focus more on being the Test captain and then also the T20 side of it. So, interesting kind of take, and then it did raise a lot of questions as well about what does that mean for one-day internationals? Are they, on their deathbed?
No, you said, are they dead? Is the question that you posed in our notes for the week.
Are they dead?
No.
Or dying is what I was alluding to. I said dead, but I was alluding to, are they on the way out?
They're in trouble. They're in trouble.
Yeah, a cricketer's going, it's not really the big format anymore. T20 is going to fill in that space.
Yep.
Tests are going to be tests. If I'm going to drop one, I'm probably going to drop the one days.
That's a reasonable question to ask. I think we've spoken in this 18-month history of this podcast at length at the rise of T20 cricket, the money that's involved in the IPL. We'll get to the Big Bash in a second, but essentially the Emirati League might be competing against the Big Bash in terms of the money that goes into it. Yep. I'm going to say no, that one days are not dead at present. If I say the Cricket World Cup, I think of the ODI World Cup. And I know that the Aussies just won the T20 World Cup, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Are they in serious trouble? I think so.
I potentially think that World Cup. So when's that? Is it this year or is it next year?
T20?
No, the
ODI is next year in India. T20 is in October here.
Okay, yeah. So yes, so the delayed World Cup, the actual World Cup happening there in kind of couple of months, and then the one days next year. I think that World Cup for the one days could be the test, the barometer to see whether it's worth continuing. I'm thinking like attendance, viewership, sponsorship money, what it all pulls in. If everyone going there and the guys that are organising it and go, we didn't really get what we wanted, or it was like we got a 10th of what the T20 World Cup got. Then people might be like, oh, fuck, maybe this is not the way to go anymore.
It will be big because it's in India. Mm-hmm. They will get good ticket sales. They will get good viewership. If they were hosting this World Cup in the West Indies,
different story.
If they were hosting it in South Africa, perhaps.
I reckon even if they're hosting it here as well.
Perhaps, yeah. No, I think we're safe. I think the big 3 in India, Australia, and England. I think you're safe. I think you're okay. I think
for Australian matches would turn out. I don't think for some of the other ones would turn out as much, especially for one-day games.
You'd be surprised.
I know I'd be surprised, but I still don't think it'd be.
If India was to play Sri Lanka or Pakistan in Sydney or Melbourne, the tickets would sell out.
Yeah,
like that. Like that. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right. Maybe it's going to be hard to get people in Australia to go watch the West Indies play Afghanistan.
Yes.
But for now, I think the ODI World Cup is still the pinnacle of white ball cricket.
Yep. And that's why
I think it's reasonable to question that status in the future.
Yeah, that's why I think it's the test that you can see. You can probably quite clearly see what people think of the World Cup on the one days with that World Cup coming up. And considering you've just had 2 of the T20, you've got a very good amount of data that you can have a look at and go, whether it's on the decline or not. I think you could kind of probably start seeing that story and then see, project where that's going to be going forward, and whether that's, on its. Well, we're talking about the deathbed on its keel and on its way out.
Yeah. No, I think
I think these are the players. They're probably they're having that. They're now literally having that conversation about, I'm playing too much cricket. What do I drop?
And the English schedule in particular is brutal.
Yeah,
like they play so much Test cricket. They play so many international fixtures. Stokes didn't even play in the IPL. He didn't play in the 100. Yep. So you can see it's not a money thing. It's he wants to focus on Test cricket. It is maybe a scheduling kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
where
he can only play so much cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah. He besides playing cricket, he also needs to prepare and train for cricket. And then fitting that all around with all the other things, his other duties, etc., being captain. Something had to give, and in the end, it ended up being the one days.
It's a massive wake up call if you're losing a world, class superstar in Ben Stokes in ODI format, which arguably he's better than he is in Test matches. Yep. It needs to be a bit of a wake up call for the English Cricket Board and proponents of ODI cricket in general.
Yep.
Anyways, it's not really it's a new story, but the whole theme and rhetoric of is T20 killing one day cricket, that discussion will continue.
Well, look at the next point there.
And it reiterates that discussion, isn't it? That South Africa have pulled out of their ODI series here in the upcoming summer, the summer of 22-23.
They give a reasoning?
Yeah, it coincides with their domestic T20 competition.
Yeah, there you go.
So
to the point where they're not even concerned about their automatic qualification into
the World Cup. So they're going to go the long way to try and qualify for next year's ODI World Cup, most likely. They've had a bit of a bad run in their ODIs recently. It's the same format as 2019 in England, in that there's only 12 teams in the World Cup. The top 8 from the current ODI league or whatever it is go through. However, one is India as the host, so it's really only the top 7 go through. And South Africa currently sit outside of that. They forfeit all the points from not coming here in our summertime, essentially. So it frees up guys to play in T20 cricket, and a few of the South Africans will come over here and play in the Big Bash as well. And again, if you're thinking of what's best for you as a person, and you've only got so long in the cricketing atmosphere, you need to get your bag, make your money. You can't really blame the players, can you? If it's far more lucrative, and we're not talking just a few dollars here and there. If you can earn 10 times more than you would playing for your country, or 100 times more than you could playing for your country to go play club T20 cricket, it's a no-brainer.
There's heaps of those guys that are fringe for both Test and one days, and they're just like, I'll just jump on the T20 circuit. Like,
of course, you cannot blame. You're a dinosaur. Yeah. You are
especially if you're a young fella, you travel the entire world, play cricket everywhere, and make bank as if you fucking wouldn't.
And a lot of these people, that come from South Africa, that come from the West Indies, maybe don't have the same kind of options as we would have, here in Australia to make a bit of money as a youngster. You can't blame these people for chasing a bit of coin.
Yeah, especially take ours. If you're say the 21st best Australian cricket player, you're just like, I'm probably not making any squads. I'll go play T20. I'll make bank. As if you would.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So, speaking of bank, Big Bash League Draft.
They're trying. It's not quite bank. It's like a piggy bank. Yeah. It's like a piggy bank. It's like, putting a few coins in. It's like
Dolomite account.
That's right. Dolomite. That's right there. Dolomites. Dolomites. Anyone that did kindergarten to year 6 in Australia will know about the old Dolomites. It is a piggy bank compared to the IPL. However, there's still a bit of cash getting thrown around in the Big Bash, and they've announced
Good idea to make it more interesting, I think.
And it does. And it does because...
Definitely for the internationals, because you're building up small stars and getting them across here.
For the internationals, for the fans here in Australia that used to watch this product, which was pretty cool, and it has been lackluster the last few years. Me as a cricket tragic, I will say that I've been less intrigued by the Big Bash over the last few years.
I think it also goes to like some of the, especially when they bring these guys over, they don't build any stories with it. Like as in like, hey, this is, this megastar's come across to play cricket for you. And you kind of go into it going, cool, this is I'm following this team, this is the squad, okay, they've added these guys, all right, cool. Whereas I think with this whole system, they can build more storylines, build up, these are the guys they've picked as, their big three or whatever, to use some analogies from other sports, like,
That's right, we're a multi-sport podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it just does more overall for the viewership, especially leading into it. I still think the comp's too long. That's always going to be my gripe, that it probably needs to be played over the summer break and not then run back into the school time. But
what my gripe is? Yes. You don't have the elite Aussie players playing because it coincides with our international test summer. You look at the IPL, you've got all the big Indian players. They played in April. Essentially, all the international competitions or international fixtures, I should say, schedule around the IPL, so you get the creme de la creme playing in this tournament. I think you could have something similar here in the Big Bash. You just obviously you probably can't have it at the time that it is now. With South Africa pulling out this year, from that will free up a couple of weeks where we will see, your Dave Warners and your Mitch Marshes and your Josh Hazlewoods playing.
But I also think that hurts the product a bit. Like, you get built into, again, going back to storylines, you get built into Dave Warner, he plays the first 5 matches, and then he fucks off. Yeah. And then you're just like, oh, okay, I'm no longer interested.
Yeah, 100%. That's why, for it to be successful, it probably needs to be like an IPL where people, elite players are committed to the whole thing.
Yeah, which I think is the problem, because Australia really only has one, well, everyone has one summer, but has like one kind of good block for cricket. Outside of that, it kind of it ends up being very difficult, and then you've got all the other, scheduling conflicts with all the other T20 comps.
Could you not have a Big Bash that runs February, March, or October, November that's scheduled around international fixtures, and you still have a Boxing Day test and a New Year's test and all the traditional cricket viewing?
I don't think October, November works. With everything else going on, and I think
so. First week of October,
it has to be school holidays.
Oh, and that's my other thing. I don't think February, March works because they already play into February
because people are back in school.
Exactly, and the whole point of doing it over the summer was to target that younger generation, get younger guys and girls into the cricket, get them there, and get them keen on cricket, and especially if you've got cricket then on. Every night over your summer holidays, you're like, hey, I can turn the TV on and there's cricket. Yeah. Well, also, I think they could do a better of the product of transitioning from Test into Big Bash League with how they do the broadcasting. They don't have to broadcast T20 games on at the exact same fucking time.
That is just ridiculous.
But I think
whoever did that, with the scheduling conflict of having a pink ball test in Adelaide at the same time as having Big Bash games, and they're saying during Test cricket, oh, by the way, on 7 May or whatever, go watch the Sixers play the Hurricanes when there's fucking Ashes are on. Guess what? Newsflash, I don't give a fuck.
So I think they could do better all round with a lot of that stuff. If they're going to make it work, especially if you're missing your top 11 Australian players. They can do some other things, I think, to make it overall work better as a tournament. But I think as well, outside of that 11, Big Bash League needs to build their own Big Bash League stars. Is the other thing. Like Chris Lynn, is probably, Lynn Stanley is probably the most recent one they've got there. But I think they've got to have others as well. Him and McCullum as the Bash Brothers, again, another good storyline. That's something you can build off. Especially if you're missing those 11 that were mentioned. So draft. Let's go loop back. Draft.
Back to what's actually happening, and it's not just theory coming out of our three brains here on a Sunday night. So what
is it? Big name recruits enter the draft from a lot of overseas guys.
180 of them have nominated,
which is a good lot.
Yeah, I looked at the list. There's probably 30 to 40 like really big recognisable names on that. So that spearheaded by Faf du Plessis, Liam Livingston, Dwayne Bravo, Kieran Pollard. If you look deep into some of them, you might not recognise a lot of the names.
But we're talking, they're potentially your first and second rounders.
Indeed.
Yeah, so then, as your draft goes on, of course, then those other guys are your third and fourth rounders. But again, storylines, you build that with like, these are the guys I'm picking in the first round, etc. And, he's our first round pick, right.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it, 4 rounds each club? They make at least
they must make at least 2, and you have a maximum of 3, which is weird because it's 4 rounds. Yeah, so I imagine the 4th round is not going to be that interesting. Also, it means...
How the fuck is it if you like trying to trade and move around?
I don't know, mate.
You're going to have
It's the first year that it's running. But so you've got a maximum of 3 selections, so 8 teams, so 24 guys are going to get drafted. So that 180 number is a bit redundant. Outside of, going...
Maybe it's something where like if you... Picking round 1, you might want to pick round 3 and 4 based on how much cash you've got left.
Exactly. And the way that it's structured is that there'll be platinum players, which is it's just money based.
Yeah. You pick it in the first,
then gold, then silver, then bronze, essentially. And that's just the salary that you have to pay these guys.
This could be a shit show where rounds 1, 2, and 3 have no selections, and they're all picking them in 4. Because it was like, we don't want to spend money with. I hope not.
They have to make at least 2.
Well, you mean you make 3 and 4.
They could go silver. We'll just have a silver.
Everyone abstains for the first 2 rounds. And man, imagine reviewing the NFL draft and no one picks anyone in the first 2 rounds. Fuck me.
Well, it doesn't work, mate. Just abstain. It's never worked. I
was wondering if you're going to pick up on that word. Is there anything else more to this, James? You can scroll down.
There is one thing that teams can retain. Teams can retain. So say you're an Adelaide Strikers fan. You're a big fan of Rashid Khan. You've followed him at the Adelaide Strikers for he's been here for 4 or 5 years at least. They can opt to retain one player. So you imagine a team like the Adelaide Strikers will retain a Rashid Khan, et cetera, et cetera.
What do the IPL do? Do they do full teams? Or they keep 2
So they can retain 4.
Okay.
They can retain 4. So it's, again, quite a big turnover between each IPL. You've got to learn, essentially, 7 of your starting lineup each year. But then you can kind of build, dynasties and storylines and the rest of it out of those 4 guys that essentially one's probably a captain, one's a vice captain, and 2 other kind of marquee players, you will, that stay on year to year in the IPL.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it needs a few more tweaks.
A little tweak.
See how it goes. And
they need to do something because it's the last few years in the Big Bash. It's not been essential viewing for cricket tragics.
Yeah, and it wanes and loses interests as well the longer it goes.
Indeed.
Final bit of cricket news that we missed as well during our little break was the continual run of bad form for our lad Kohli. To the point...
Again, is he our lad? No, I've never really had that much affinity with Virat Kohli.
He's a lad. He gets...
we talk about him a fair bit.
We do talk about him.
But
I suppose there's that.
I think the interesting point was it's now gotten to the point where other legends and other people are coming out in support of Kohli, say, hey, stick by him, get through this run of form. So the stuff we're talking about for the last 12 months is now more present in everyone's mind. Everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, he really is in a bit of a struggle for form and big scores. What's going on? So they're all coming out and trying to support him, and the players supporting the coach. They're all having the same conversation. I guess for me, we're now at that point. Is that now the point of we've gone too far. We're like we've now hit that like everyone's talking about it. Is it
where there's smoke, there's fire?
Yeah,
kind of
which is
sentiment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is there really a problem here where just Kohli need to go back to that chat about reserve grade. Doesn't he go back, play some reserve grade?
Play the Commonwealth Games, Indian team.
Yeah, get some form back up and then come back in.
He needs runs. He needs runs. So, like, it gets to a point where...
And will he get runs in the international fixtures?
They play the West Indies and Zimbabwe coming up. If there's any time for him to get on top of maybe some subpar... he's not going to play. Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli have been rested for India's tour of Zimbabwe. Shikhar Dhawan will be the Indian stand-in captain.
I believe Shikhar Dhawan played well in their recent matches.
Against the West. They're playing the West Indies at the moment. Yeah, he needs to make runs. I think that's you know...
I mean, the fact that Sharma's being rested as well means it's probably not that concerning that Kohli's been rested for this.
I get it. Like, it's Zimbabwe. And India is renowned for playing B teams and being able to win with B teams. I'm sure they send an India B team and clean up Zimbabwe. No dramas. But it's just a missed opportunity, I suppose, for Virat.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Get the naysayers off his back. Allow him to get form, I think is what we're talking about. And
there's always an asterisk when you score runs against Zimbabwe. Matthew Hayden, 380, the highest score by an Australian Test cricketer ever against Zimbabwe. Little asterisk. It's like my golf score. It's like 88.
But that's because you cheat, bro.
Asterisk. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Did he count the time that he fucking put it in the drink on the 6th? Did he count the mulligan that he gave himself on the 11th? There's an asterisk.
I still think for Kohli though, he still got to swing that bat and hit that ball. Like that feeling.
Ball, hit ball.
Yeah, I think that feeling of
fundamental cricket.
Hitting fours, getting runs, getting set, getting comfortable, which he's missed of late, which is exactly maybe what he needs. And the problem is if he's then rested and they go up and then have to play, one of the big four, where again it's a challenging. You're batting against the best of the best bowlers. You're not really going to get your chance to get back into form. Is what I'm getting at.
Yep.
And we've talked about he needs runs. We've talked about he needs runs for probably 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
When does that become an issue where we're just like we can't keep carrying him?
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable conversation to have now. Early on, I was like, nah.
He's Kohli.
He's arguably the India's greatest. He is India's greatest white ball player, and arguably one of their best all round cricketers of all time. I think early on, in the form slump, I was like, it'll correct itself. Don't worry about it. Yada yada. Now I'm kind of like, this guy is playing for his position.
Yeah. Well, BC before COVID, he was excellent. AC after COVID. It just hasn't clicked for him in the last 2 years.
It's been a long time.
It has been a very long time, unfortunately.
The Esky segue from cricket to American football.
I'm going to like this. Keep going.
Let's do it. No, that's the segue.
Oh, that is. I was hoping for a segue.
No. It's just a thing that we like to do. It's two sports that we enjoy. Possibly, we may be the only three people on the planet that. And shout out to our boy Rick and Patel. That loves cricket and American football.
Oh, there's probably plenty of them.
Sean, can you take us away, please, for some pre-season camp news? I'm going to visit the men's and I'll be back.
Very good. And we'll run through. I guess the news, and then we'll get into some fantasy chat. Camps are back. Training camps a couple of days in. Very interesting. Some camps are setting records for attendance. I saw pictures of the Commanders having like 4 people show up to watch camp. So
is that a record?
Probably the record for least amount of people to show up. So maybe the sentiment of fans and where some of those clubs are currently at. But yeah, some interesting. Let's maybe talk some Tampa news. they've made some additions. They've added Julio Jones and Kyle Rudolph to probably two key positions where they needed some extra weapons. Now with no Gronk, probably
Gronk retiring and then AB disappearing into
and Godwin coming back from the ACL as well. Getting a little bit of extra help, and Julio's looked good in camp. Some chat that Tom Brady wanted Julio last year as well. They've been going back and forth with their communication. So getting a good ad there, adding a bit of weapons. But some sad news. Ryan Jensen, their Pro Bowl center, looked like season-ending knee injury. I'm not sure if they said exactly what it was. Season-ending to me probably ends up being anything ligament-related.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, huge loss.
Especially for a big man.
A huge part of, I guess, the success of Tampa.
They've got a good
making
offensive
sure that
line. So.
Yeah, making sure that Brady stays standing upright. Just trying to see any news on what actually happened.
Yeah, so they've gone. There was chat there whether they'd go back to, is it Marpet, who retired at the end of last year, try to coax him out of retirement to come play back. But sounds like he's dropped like 30 pounds. He's slimmed down a fair bit. So unlikely that he'll come back. So they're looking at a couple of other centres on the market potentially to come and play on that offensive line for Tampa.
Yeah, I think we do have a couple of rookies, well, not rookies, but like understudies that.
Yeah, young.
That should be okay stepping up. I guess it'll just depend on what's out on the market. But yeah, huge loss for the line. It'd be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Other chat, Fournette was 260 pounds when he showed up to minicamp. He checked in at 244 when he showed a training camp. So obviously did a bit of a cut as he was leading into training camp to save some weight. Because there's definitely some chat of his fantasy implications. He's very highly rated currently with no Rojo there at Tampa. It'll be interesting. So, interesting stories there. Tom Brady starts his 23rd season as well, which is ridiculous. And
about to turn 45.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what Tampa can do this year, and we'll talk quarterbacks in a minute. Some signing news. DK got paid. Got 30 million signing bonus, which is the most ever for a wide receiver. Great money there. Kyler Murray also got paid. He got a $231 million deal, which is $1 million more than what Sean Watson got. But interesting, during the week came out that there was a clause in his contract of a 4-hour minimum film study every week for the season. Which, then the media got a hold of course, and then alluded to he doesn't study. Kyler, well known for playing COD on Twitch as well. So some memes about going around that because they removed this clause yesterday because it created more hoopla than what they were expecting, and cards are like, no, it's not a reflection of Kyler. And Kyler, the first Asian American athlete to need a homework study clause in his contract. It's
Can he say that? You can say that.
I could say
Oh, my kids are half Asian, so
that's true. That's true.
I'm stereotypical Asian father over here. So
you study.
You study, become doctor. If Morty's not a doctor, somebody's going to get hurt real bad.
Shout out to the great Russell Peters.
Yeah, shout out, yes, shout out to my missus. It was interesting. Russell Wilson, also in contract talks potentially for a long-term extension there with Denver, said, I don't need no homework clause. Whatever someone tells me to do, I triple it. So a lot of funny chat coming out for Kyler. Unlucky that's kind of got picked up in this. We'll talk quarterbacks in a minute as well. Final stories, the Zach Wilson hooking up with his mum's friend. Was hilarious. The memes out of that blew up Twitter for several days. His was it CJ? CJ I think he's come across to join them.
The tight end.
For tight end, was wearing a Zach Wilson Man of the Year Times Man of the Year T-shirt supporting his lad. So yeah, what I said about Jets players and fantasy for the rookies, a couple of weeks ago, just bump up all their ratings. So, we know Wilson's got that dog in him, and he's in for a big season incoming, definitely.
I think I've watched a few short films on the internet which have started with that. Oh, you're my friend's mom. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's a big category in the US. So Wilson's lived out every kid's fantasy.
What's the category? New York Jets quarterback.
My mum's hot friend.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, and final bit of news: Chris Carson retires after 5 years because of neck injuries.
Not good.
Yeah, not at all. He definitely a very tough runner, tough motherfucker there. He very much ran hard and
a motherfucker, you say?
Yes, yeah. You missed my segue, bro. He's definitely in there for that wear and tear. We talked the 5 year run. He's definitely worn on him, and he's going to retire there, which means Rashad Penny and the rookie there, Kenneth Walker, probably take a little bit of fantasy bumps because they're going to have a big workload with whoever plays quarterback for them, whether that's Smith or Locke, coming forward. Either way, that's news. Lots of bits and pieces coming in and out of training camps. A lot of the stories of this guy's excelling, etc. They're building chemistry. Let's wait until some pads come on. Preseason starts in a week. I think it's first game Friday our time, so Thursday for everyone else.
They have the Hall of Fame game, the Jags Raiders, and then the preseason proper will start the week after that.
Yes, definitely. So we'll talk some fantasy, bro.
Fantasy football. We are fantasy diehards, and what are we? 10th year of our fantasy comp this year. Yep. So we've done it a little bit. Some of us kind of fancy ourselves as fantasy gurus. We've all won our competition as well, at least once.
So well, of those 10 years, there's 5 championships on this table. 3 down this end.
Yeah, someone's won more. I guess. If the stats tell a story, then Sean has technically been better than me amongst. However,
I mean, to be completely honest, I'm surprised I actually did win that year. So I can't complain.
I'm pretty sure I traded him his main player to win that year. And I think I did the same for you as well, Peps. So anyways,
enough about our fantasy league. Let's talk about your fantasy league.
And we want to talk about, we're going to go through the positions. We talked about rookies in the last one. We're going to talk about quarterbacks here. And I've kind of broken it down into tiers. The rankings have changed and they go up and down depending on your preference. My first 5, I don't care the order, they're the top 5.
Yep.
So we'll start with Lamar Jackson, currently going in the mid-50s. Which is about a 6th round pick, depending on your league size. I really like Lamar. He has been training the house down. He adds the extra X factor with the legs. His big concern, of course, will be his wide receiver core.
There's no one big name in that receiving core.
Bateman,
obviously, Mark Andrews was the best tight end in football last year.
Had over 100 receptions, and the meme of fuck it, Andrews is down there somewhere, and Lamar's tossing it up. The big thing is he's got the first rounder in Bateman. We'll see what he can kind of come into and what that fits in. Now with Hollywood out of that squad and at the Cards, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Lamar, he looked huge. If you've seen the pictures of him, he's trained the house down. I think he's really kind of coming into that kind of mold. Hopefully we'll have the running backs back, which I think they missed because they I don't want to say they're going to run the wishbone, but they do love to have that extra sweet. They love to run the football, and losing kind of those options probably limited Lamar a little bit. So let's see what that looks like this season. So I do really like Lamar. I think he's a solid pick there in that 5th or 6th round.
You're not saying he's the best quarterback in fantasy football?
He's not my number 1. I'll say that. So this is just, I think of these 5, they all get picked in either that 5th or 6th round. There's one that people are picking ahead of, and I also think he's my top quarterback, but we'll get to that in a minute. Justin Herbert fits in that list as well. He's going in the early 40s, a little bit ahead of Lamar, which is a bit interesting because he's not one of those guys that adds a huge amount with his legs. But you look at the weapons. You look at the offense, the weapons. You look at what he's done. He's in a definitely in that window there. The team has tried to elevate their play to stay with that division. It's a very tough division, but I think again I like Herbert. I think he's a solid pick in that sort of 5th round where he's going currently. The next one, Patrick Mahomes. The freak that he's a Patrick Mahomes. I probably like Herbert slightly more, purely because I think the Kansas as a team didn't do enough in the arm race that was out the West. The other teams have got better and, got to play 6 games against those, which might make it a bit more challenging. No Hill.
Yeah, that's massive.
That's huge.
Massive. Really needs... he's going to have Kels there. We'll have to see what that looks like. Hardman's probably the one at the moment. I'm probably not relying on Juju too much there. Sky Moore has been the rookie. He's been doing really well in camp. So see how they kind of fit into that, and then what that team looks like. But yeah, I just worry that the division is going to be too tough, which might limit some of his opportunities. Then on the flip side of that, it might mean he's got to throw the ball 50 times every week.
That's a good point. Also, last year, Justin Herbert had more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes.
Yes. Yeah. So a little bit of a down year for Patrick Mahomes, which is interesting to say. But we'll have to see what that looks like going forward. Kyler Murray is then the next on that list. He's going in about the 60s. And I think that's probably fair. It's a bit risky with him without Hopkins to start the year, who's facing a 6-week suspension, I believe. And I prefer the other 4 on this 5 that we're talking about. I prefer those other 3 that we've already mentioned. Of course, a lot of noise in this season with Hollywood coming across and the whole contract thing we just mentioned before. And I'm unsure about this Cards team. I feel like they've taken a step backwards. I don't think their offensive line is as good. The wide receiver group's probably a bit of a question mark until whether Brown's going to stub himself. There's no Kirk as well, and then Hopkins is going to miss the first 6 weeks. So see what they do. Cards historically start well and then have had slowed down as the season went on. And then the running back's a bit of a question mark. They've got Connor as it.
Who had a comeback year last year.
Yeah. But whether he can be a bell cow for the full year and carry that load, interesting questions. I'd still, I'd probably draft him if I could in that positions in that probably what's that, a 6th or 7th round pick in that 60s bracket. I think that's still solid value there, and see if Murray can bounce back. Put to bed some of these comments of recent weeks. And then the last one in my tier 1, my top 5 is my top quarterback is Josh Allen.
Should he be in his own tier?
Maybe he's going in the mid 30s, and maybe that's why
I didn't. Early for a quarterback.
Which is early, which is probably why I didn't include him higher, because I think it is probably a touch too early. That's 3rd or 4th round, probably 4th-ish roundish, which I think's high, because it really means. Because most leagues are 10 teams, even up to 15 teams, you're probably going to get a top 15 quarterback.
Yep.
Let's put it that way.
Yep. It's not the most important position traditionally in fantasy
And if you're
football.
Spending a 4th round pick on a quarterback while everyone else is picking running backs or wide receivers,
you're missing out.
You're probably going to be missing out. You're probably hurting yourself there.
Having said that, is Josh Allen that much is he going to be that much better than everyone else?
And that's the question.
In that you're drafting a quarterback / half running back.
Yeah. And, he definitely adds extra with his legs. He's got all the weapons. Hopefully Davis can probably take an extra step forward. Let's see what Cook can probably bring to that offense. He's a heavy favourite. Hopefully he's not fighting his D lineman every week like he did today in training camp. But we'll see. There are some questions there, but I think the arm talent, what they've got, they've really kind of built and set themselves up. They need to make a run. They're in that window, as I talked about. So I have him a touch ahead. I just don't like his average draft position currently. I think if you can sneak him back around, if you can get him in the 5th round, that's a good place to target him, because then potentially, you've set your roster with your 2 RBs or your 2 wide receivers.
You think he's projected at going higher than he's worth?
Yeah, and it's probably because people are going, I'm not going to get him in the 5th, so I'm going to take him at the end of the 4th as an example and get him there. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest risk, and especially when you can turn that around and say get Lamar 2 rounds later, maybe that's a better option.
Who you got in your second tier?
So second tier ends up being the guys that maybe don't have the legs, and moving back. And I kept Hurts out. He did finish as QB6 last year, so he's not in my tier 1. I've slid him back a little bit. He's going late 60s, probably around your round 7s. They have loaded up on offense. I think they're in a kind of a prove-it year. And I just don't know if I like the Eagles team enough to like Jalen Hurts enough. Like he adds an extra amount with his legs. He's probably not as great a passer as the other 5 we just talked about.
Yeah, agree.
So that's probably why he's here. But I think they've given him the weapons with AJ Brown there. Now they have Smith in his second year. Can they take another step forward? And he's also potentially, he's probably got the best offensive line in the league too there. So he's got to take advantage of those, and maybe he can push himself into top 5 for fantasy. I'm just not a huge fan of that risk, and I like the other options better, and especially some of the options after him as well. So I'm not drafting Jalen Hurts. Interesting. He's on my board.
Top of the league last year for rushing touchdowns out of quarterbacks with 10. But yeah, perhaps the lack of arm talent, and he threw for 16 touchdowns the whole season last year. That might be a bit concerning.
Yes. We'll see what AJ Brown does there, but that is the question. Someone that did throw a fuckload of touchdowns, Joe Burrow is next. He's going mid-70s. He's a big concern is he had absolutely nothing with the legs. Had less rushing yards than Mac Jones last year. So for statues of quarterbacks, that's his own job. But when you've got a good running back and you've got the trio of wide receivers they do, they can throw the football, and they will throw the absolute fucking shit out of it this year. So I think he's one of those really good values, and I think him, Brady, and Rodgers will get to. Like, they're all great value for where they are. And I feel bad for some of the seniors in this list as well, considering they were probably, one was an MVP and the other one was arguably number 2 in that list. You get dropped down here. But that's because they don't add extra with their legs. So I like Joe Burrow. I like him in that probably 8-roundish range, going in the 70s there. He's got all the weapons. They've added extra on the offensive line. He should have a better season than last year, and that could be very valuable.
What about the GOAT?
Yeah, the GOAT.
45. About to turn 45.
45. Yep. He's had a slight bump in his average draft position since I did my initial notes. He's gone from like mid-80s to early 80s, probably on the fact that they've got Julio Jones there. We mentioned him before. Added extra weapons. They've got a few weapons there. I still don't think this. I think this team's probably still not as good as its Super Bowl team. But what did he throw last year? He was over 5. He had the most passing yards.
Yeah, 5,300 passing yards.
Did he have the most touchdowns as well with 43? I think he did.
I think he had. Yeah, he had both of those.
You can't question that. I think he probably do similar as well. He's got the weapons. Mike Evans, 1,000-yard season incoming. He's not going to fall off that cliff anytime soon. They're a good football team. Going in the 9th round, like if you want to sit on quarterbacks and pick everyone else, and then go the Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers strategy. I think you could definitely do that because they're both going to be here around that 9th and 10th round pick.
Was also quarterback 3 last year in fantasy football.
Yeah. Stop doubting him, bro. Stop doubting him. Russell Wilson's then kind of next on this list here, going in the mid-80s.
Any personal investment here?
Yeah, let's ride.
So you're picking him, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've put him in here with some of the statues, but he's kind of average for rushing in the seasons between 400 and 500 yards. So he still adds a decent amount with his legs. He's not Hurts or Lamar going up there around 1,000, but he's still adding a potential there. He didn't add a lot last year.
That's my question.
But he was also hurt for a lot of that.
Sure.
But he was on pace to be QB1 before he got hurt too, with the finger injury, and then wasn't great afterwards. Plus that team, injuries to running backs, offensive line not great, and also had a preference for running the ball. Whereas he's now moved across to Denver, where they've got a good trio of wide receivers. They've got a good, what were they last year? They were the best duo of running backs there, and he's got a better offensive line than he didn't see at Seattle. So, yeah, I think there's a big year coming for Russell, and I think mid-80s going in that 9th round. Again, like that's money, that's value. So I think that's excellent value there for him. And I think it's better value than, say, Prescott, who's going next, because I think he's got a little bit more questions on his weapons. Because I'm not so sure. Like, I think Dak's a good talent. He's had a great bounce back year from the injury. I think he's probably going to have another great year. I just don't know. With no Cooper, CeeDee Lamb's really the only option they've got there. Gallup, I think, is coming back off an injury. What's Zeke like? How much is Tony Pollard going to fit in there? I think they've retooled the offensive line. It's a good offensive line, top 10. So he'll have protection. Just not sure he has like the weapons that, say, Russell's going to have this season outside of CD and what that looks like. So if you've got both on the board, I'm picking Wilson and I'm not picking Dak.
I'm picking Dak Prescott there. If it's Russell versus Dak Prescott, Monks, and any thoughts? I don't think his weapons are bad. Yeah, losing Murray Cooper doesn't help. But CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz proved himself as a pretty handy tight end last year. Can still dump it off to Zeke and gives you a little bit with the legs. Yeah, he doesn't give you a Russell Wilson with the legs, but
I think they're very comparable with the legs, but they're not like those other lads we talked about in the top tier.
I've ridden Dak a couple of seasons, and he's very up and down. Like, he can have one game where he's putting 40 points on.
That's also
next
Dallas.
week's he's got like 5 points.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a function of Dallas being Dallas. I think it comes down to Zeke. If Zeke can get back to good Zeke, then Prescott will be awesome.
And I have big question marks in there, so I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
What about this guy?
MVP coming in. He's
2 times.
Yeah, back to back. Getting picked in the late 90s. A 10th round pick. The problem is the big questions over the receiving.
It's not so much Aaron Rodgers; it's who's around Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, question marks on the veterans.
Who's he throwing the ball
new
to?
Offensive coordinator, no Adams. He's still won the MVP. It doesn't look like he's slowing down. The Nick Cage crossplay during the week, beautiful. Probably should bump his value up a little bit.
Oh no, not the bees! Yeah. Different movie, but also Nick Cage.
If you want to wait and you pick your quarterback in the 9th or 10th round, there's options there.
Just give me Aaron Rodgers in our league. Just give him to me. You can all sleep on everyone else. I'm going to go with my boy.
Yep. Yeah, I've got no questions about it. He'll put
if you want him, take him first round, guaranteed.
Yeah, there you go.
Might skip first round.
Yeah.
But they're legitimate question marks. He's lost Devontae Adams of probably the best receiver in the NFL fame.
I did look this back. Padgett picked Lamar Jackson 2nd round last year.
Given the year before, that's probably not.
Don't pick MVPs in the 2nd round, bro.
It's probably not the worst pick.
Better than kick.
Picking a kicker in the 2nd round. But that was a meme. I'll give you a pass on that. So
doesn't give you anything with his leg, or not much with the legs.
He's in this lesser leg guys statues kind of bracket. But can sling the rock. Will be interesting. Who will be his prominent wide receiver? Whether that's Lazard steps into that role as number 1, whether the rookie gets involved, or whether they spread the ball just all over the place.
Has a mystery injury, this Christian Watson, at the moment. I'm not sure what it is, but he's not participating in training camp. All right, tier 3, who we got?
Tier 3, and then we get into Trey Lance. So unproven. Jimmy G still technically there, but they did come out during the week and said this is Lance's team.
Guy. Yep.
Yeah, he's our number 1 quarterback.
Trey area.
Yeah, so whether Jimmy G gets traded, whether that ends up being like, say, the Seahawks, big questions there, but the Jimmy G era is over. Will be interesting if he stays there and plays as backup, whether they start badly, what happens, which gives me concerns with Lance. Debo is there holding in, no contract. Whether what happens there, considering every other wide receiver in his draft class has gotten paid.
Is holding in the same as holding out?
Holding out is you don't show up. Holding in is you show up but don't practice.
I learned something today.
Yeah, him.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a new thing. Yeah, I've only heard it this year. Him and DK did the same thing. As in, like, hey, I'm reporting, I'm here, but I'm going to do some, light stretching over here on the sideline.
Rezzy's trainer.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, for Lance, he's everyone's QB darling. He's like, he can win your leagues. He can also potentially lose you a fuckload of leagues as well.
Yeah, it's a gamble, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's essentially his rookie season. Like he played a couple of games last year, filled in, looked okay, but he's got to play all 17 games. You look at what the rookies did last year, more toted rookies as well. You probably shouldn't have been drafting any of those boys either. And I don't think any of those guys are worth drafting either in fantasy this season. But having said that, 49ers are probably better situations than any of those guys are. So they've got more talent on their roster.
You've got him as quarterback 12.
Yeah. Going in the early hundreds, which is like 11th. Round.
Would you be willing to say if you didn't get a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes and you kind of wrote it out and you went one of the guys that we just mentioned in tier 2, would you be willing to take
double up?
Would you, double up and take a punt on Trey Lance, given the potential upside?
Probably not, because there's probably more value with wide receivers and running backs.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
If I'm in a two quarterback league, yeah, I think like here's a good way to
definitely 2 quarterback league. It's a different story.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a good spot. But yeah, if I got one quarterback, I'm probably targeting the other group we mentioned, and you should be able to get them if everyone else has drafted the others. I don't think Lance is kind of I think Lance will be the one where you don't draft him, see how he does in the first month, and then make a decision. Especially if, like, hey, you get Aaron Rodgers and then he blows his Achilles out week 2, you go, I'm picking up Trey Lance. I think that's kind of where he fits. I think there's more value elsewhere, and I think give him a year, prove himself, see where he is next year, and then pick him. See if he moves into that top tier that we talked about, or he's there with QB6 and Jalen Hurts. Because that's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe
that's his upside. That's his upside.
Maybe you get Jalen Hurts, but then also maybe doesn't have the running acumen, and if he's not got the pass touchdowns, you're also worried. So, yeah, for me, I'm not drafting Trey Lance. Derek Carr, speaking of touchdowns, only 23 last year. Does get Adams, healthy Waller. Hunter Renfrow was their main wide receiver last year. What does that look like? Offensive line slightly better after they got rid of everyone and have basically retooled. Do I think mid 110s, which is like a 12th round pick? Would I wait that long on a quarterback? Probably not. Unless I'm going for some big dick play. But I'm not Raiders for Super Bowl. That's not my team. So I'm probably avoiding Carr. I think he could probably get to 30 tartars this year with Adams there. I think he wins more football games than he would your fantasy games. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
He's primetime Carr. I don't think he's overtime Carr. That's what he is. With the Raiders, they won plenty of games overtime. I just don't think he's fantasy relevant in this with the other names above.
I tend to agree. This next guy.
Yeah, I don't know why
people sleeping on Matt.
Ranked in he's going mid-90s, so he's going more where Rodgers is. Won a Super Bowl, 40 tartars last year. Does have Allen Robinson joining the squad. O-line is retooling a little bit, but otherwise...
Do you think the O-line's down on last year?
Well, they got the new left tackle, which is probably the big thing with Whitworth retiring. So
40-year-old Whitworth.
Yeah.
Who looks 50 years older than Tom Brady.
Yes. So that's probably adds a little bit in there. So we'll have to see what that looks like. Sorry, the internet's just playing funny buggers there. See what happens there.
Sorry,
do you reckon the Rams
I'll close the Zach Wilson video that I was just watching.
Do you reckon the Rams are as successful as last season?
They've got all the weapons there.
The defense is still there. I think that's the main
Super Bowl
thing.
hangover though.
Maybe.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. The Super Bowl hangover. On paper,
Yeah.
Who don't they have from last year? Von Miller, OBJ's hurt.
Yeah. And they've
outside of that, everyone's back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Traded Bobby Trees and changed
Bobby Trees,
and changed him for Allen Robinson, who's arguably probably maybe a better wide receiver. So, they've got. Which, if anything, I think Cooper Kupp probably takes a step back, because they've got more options.
Be hard to go forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the problem. He can't really go forward. I think he's probably a bit back, and then Alan Robins steps up, but that might make that team more dangerous. So I like Stafford. I like Stafford more than Carr and Lance in there, so I'd definitely take him. And then from there, just someone watching was ranked 15th in this list that I had. I don't think he's there anymore. He's going in like the 200s. But anything below here, don't draft. Don't draft Deshaun Watson. Don't be that guy in your team. He's got anywhere from an 8-week to a full year suspension coming in, and that probably will know the answer to that within the next week. But yeah, if you can, avoid everything after this. There's no quarterback worth looking at post this list.
Unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. And if you're doing that, you're pretty weird.
Yeah, and if you've missed out on any of these guys, you probably shut down that fantasy league and go do something else because you're in trouble. And that's my fantasy football for the week.
That's the NFL for this week. Nice. Very, very excited for the start of the NFL season upcoming. Just quickly, just a bit of soccer, not too much going on. Obviously, we had Manchester United and
playing friendlies
and Leeds down here in Australia. Man City and Bayern. We're at Lambeau Field over there in America. Bit of pre-season. The APL starts like next week, so it's upcoming. That's for sure. The big story, I suppose, around Manchester United was Ronaldo didn't travel with the team. No one's snapped him up just yet.
Yeah, there was a meeting during the week. We had like a full car procession where they drove him in to talk to senior management. So they chat, because there was also a chat about they weren't going to transfer him but loan him out. So if one of these other
Melbourne Storm.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Melbourne Storm on the blow. I was like, can he play fullback? Probably.
Probably kick goals.
Probably kick goals, yeah. I think he's probably got some legs and some speed about him. You never know. He's never used his hands, though. His hands would be suspect. That's probably the main thing.
I don't know how he'd go trying to tackle,
Yeah, Jack Whiten running at him again.
Yeah.
Anyway, besides that, sounds like they're trying to either smooth him over with, say, the signings they have made and say, hey, come back, we can potentially make a run and get into Champions League. Whether that matters, trying to help them get back. Considering he wants to win. I don't know. So it's interesting there, but they're obviously powers that be are going to have that conversation. And considering that they're a week away, and I believe he's still under contract with Man U, I don't know what's going to happen there. But it's interesting coming into on the eve of the start of the season.
It's also soccer, so we could see Ronaldo play the first 4 games for United and then get snapped up and go back to La Liga or elsewhere. But as a United fan, look, it's not good that he didn't travel with the team, but the fact that he hasn't been signed just yet.
Also, he probably doesn't need to play fair friendlies in countries that aren't the biggest soccer mad places.
Of course. But you look at the teams that did get named in a lot of these preseason games. A lot of the other big names did show up.
Yeah,
he did post a picture during the week. He was training at Man U with some of the team. So
very Ronaldo-esque picture there.
It is.
There's four guys there hanging out, and Ronaldo's flexing his quads. Not standing essentially with the other 4 blokes. But anyways,
no. But still in and around the team. It's not like he's just completely off the radar. So yeah.
They did sign Christian Eriksen. So before we had our little hiatus to have children and get COVID and the rest of it, we had spoken about not really signing anyone big. They do have Christian Eriksen incoming.
Yeah, they've made a few other signings there. So I think that's the chat, whether they're going to coax him back. But we'll see. Starts in a week. How my brain works, I saw Carmichael Hunt on the screen before. He's going to be the coach of South Logan going forward.
I did see that, yeah.
So be interesting to see how that goes for old Carmichael.
He's not that... He wouldn't be much older than us.
I think he's like... he'd be Benji age, wouldn't he?
Do you reckon 35?
He'd have to be around there.
I think
they would have started at about the same time.
No, I think he's younger than Benji.
Monks on the quick chat.
This could be a matter of months. This could be...
how old is he?
What's the skull bet here?
No skulls.
35.
There you go.
So Benji's 36? So technically I'm right, but also
also very fucking close to that.
no skulls to be paid out.
Yeah. Going back to NRL, that's the way it's going at the moment. Can the young coaches change into the guard?
Let's do a final round. Ding ding. It's the easiest noise to do.
Yeah.
Can't stop that one up.
No foghorns.
I could try.
Also, don't think they have a bell.
That is true.
I don't think UFC does ding.
They've got that.
No, they've got the clappy sticks.
Yeah.
Nah, that's not the sound. But it's the final round, so it encompasses boxing and F1.
Yeah.
And
So let's go. Before we go through UFC 277, let's go through the last pod news. So Rodriguez beat Ortega with Ortega popping his shoulder out. Looked bad. Unfortunate there.
Fight.
Two of these the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, actually, true.
So looking likely that Rodriguez not going to do a rematch and pushing for that belt chat. So we'll see how that goes there because that's Volk. Because I think he's more worried that Volk's going to fuck off. So we'll have to wait his time. What else? UFC Fight Night London. Curtis Blades defeated the...
defeated, in inverted commas, Tom Aspinall, poor fella.
Yeah, blew his
So rough.
ACL. Unfortunate for the big fella. But Paddy the Batty and Meatball Molly got their wins as well. Meatball Molly with another spinning back elbow.
Back to back spinning back elbows.
And how Paddy the Batty cuts weight as well is phenomenal. I wish I could do that.
He gets
That's
fat.
absolutely crazy.
He actually gets fat.
Did you see him weigh in, bro? Like, I was
Fucking
like,
good on him.
Yeah, he gets cut. I don't know how he does that. It's just insane. He's an absolute freak.
He puts the pints away. He puts the pizza away.
Yes. Trains.
Trains.
Then there's some fight announcements. So Oliveira taking on, how do you say Islam's last name?
Makachev.
Was announced for the title. So that's a title fight. Nate Diaz is going to verse Hamzat in a hazmat suit for his final UFC fight, which is essentially a death sentence for Nate Diaz.
Are you worried? Like I was like, rest in peace, bro. Like,
but then again, Nate Diaz also asked for this fight, and he was wanting to fight Ngannou as well. So maybe there's a problem with Nate Diaz more than there is anyone
we
else.
get a HIA on this.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, and then Raheem Sterling's going to fight Pillashaw at UFC 280, and that 280 card is looking massive because that's only the co-main, I believe.
Raheem Sterling or Aljamain Sterling?
Raheem's actually, he changed it.
From Man City.
Yeah, that's how my brain works. I've just gone.
Not well.
Yeah, no, it's done a Google search on Sterling, and then I picked up Raheem first in the search.
That's fair. That's the same surname. I'll pay it.
Yeah. It's just how it's filed away. It just doesn't process properly. I did that the other week. It's the same last name. It's just obviously not ordered right in the filing cabinet. Anyway,
the filing cabinet.
It's too much filing away there. That was UFC post this. What was 280? Pre 277. We'll talk about it in a second. 280. What's on the card?
Some big names.
I haven't really got anything.
Charles Oliveira versus Makachev, Benin Durish.
Yeah, Bendurish. Yeah.
Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. Oman was on there. That's a big one as well. Because for Yan, that's like
implications.
That's essentially a number one contenders fight.
Yeah.
We'll get the winner of whoever Sterling and Pillashaw is.
Yeah.
And today, full disclosure, none of us caught the fights today.
Unfortunately.
Probably the first main event that I haven't seen live for quite some time.
Also, not the greatest card, unfortunately, I think.
Had a child and have to have people around, talk to him, etc., etc.
You could have had it in the background.
I could have, I guess. We watched the Man Little Baby. You know, we got up early last week and watched the fights in London, and I thought, do I want my daughter exposed to this kind of violence? And then I thought, she's a week old. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Exactly. She won't comprehend for many months.
I have plenty of time to watch a few bits.
She's struggling to keep her head straight.
Especially after some of the punches that Amanda Nunes landed in this, it's probably a good thing that she avoids. Yeah, like it was a return to form for her. And, this card, probably not the greatest card name value wise. Unfortunately. So it's probably not going to have solved real well, but it was great to see Nunes kind of back to form, made weight really well, and it ended up being, by all accounts, a war in this one. I saw Pena's massive gash on the top of her forehead as well. Had blood basically covering her entire face for most of the fight. Went the distance. Decision win to Nunes. And retains. Gets her belt back in the bantamweight and goes back to being champ with a featherweight belt, I believe. So yeah.
What do you think? Obviously, you only caught the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the difference was today between the last fight, where the Venezuelan vixen went out and upset her?
I don't know. Whether the storm, I think I don't want to say the last one was a fluke because it wasn't. But I think going into this one, understanding what the game plan was, which was she's going to come forward and be in my face. I need to work on probably going backwards and then landing big punches, which she obviously did in this one. With I saw the one highlight where she essentially decleats Pena with a right straight, like it was a big punch. So I think understanding more what pressure was going to be in the face, it was going to be a dogfight. Knowing going into this. Wasn't going to wilt under that pressure like she did in the first fight. I think that was probably the biggest change, was understanding the expectations, having the game plan for it, and then knowing as well that I've got the bigger, the weapons here, the bigger bazookas, and I can let these go and I can put her away. And, she didn't. Credit to Pena here for fighting, going 5 rounds, getting beaten up, and turning it into a classic war. So by all accounts, it was a great fight.
And is this interim chance?
Yes.
Between Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara France in the flyweight division. Obviously, Davison Figueiredo, reclaiming that.
Was in the crowd, and they did do a post-fight face-off. So will be the 4th fight for them. Which
will be the first.
What is that, quadology or something?
I don't know. It doesn't have a word.
Yeah.
Quadrilogy?
No.
Quadriceps.
You just made that shit. Marks, I can't think of any movie series. They usually just say the 4th one, yeah. I don't know. Fast Forward.
What's Harry Potter 4 called?
Well, they had names based on the books. So
the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah. Stop it.
Yeah. Anyway, Marks, you worked that out.
Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts.
What happened in this was Moreno won by a body kick, essentially. Big kick to
Rare.
to the liver, dropped France in this, and then he finished up on top with punches, and they had to stop the fight. He did. It's interesting. Herb Dean probably let through about 20 punches on the ground, considering Derek Lewis in the previous one got like 1. So. Early stoppage in that fight, and we'll talk about that in a second. Unfortunate for France, probably needs to go away, have a couple of fights. Israel Adesanya was in the crowd there.
In his corner.
In his corner. So unfortunate for him. Go away, work on it. These two at the top of this flyweight division have really set themselves apart. They're the only two really in the division, so they will fight for their forever future. What did you get for quads?
So you can call it a quadrology. I guess technically it's a tetralogy. So tetra being Greek for 4.
Bit of ancient Greek here on the podcast.
Yeah.
Is that Latin or Greek?
Greek. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously in terms of literary work. I suppose it translates to sport quite well as well.
Literature.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember reading all those books in high school English and definitely not getting the Sparks notes from them to write my essays. Anyways.
Speaking of someone that read a lot of books, Derek Lewis.
How?
That's my segue. Let's go. Derek Lewis.
If anything, Derek Lewis strikes me as someone that didn't read a lot of books.
What are you saying? He's uneducated?
No, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to read books. He's a knockout artist.
Yeah. Anyway, in this one, probably on the end of a bad decision. It didn't look great. He was getting landed on in this one, going backwards, kind of fell down. The other guy's sort of swinging on him while he's on the ground. The ref jumps in, and then Derek Lewis stands straight back up. And was like, I'm good to go. So you're like, oh, yeah, probably early stoppage. But then also if the ref doesn't jump in, then the other guy probably jumps on top of him, beats the shit out of him.
Kills him.
Yeah, hard to say. I think it was probably slightly earlier, let him die. That's my mantra. Go it on your shield, bro.
Jesus Christ. I'd love for us to interview Derek Lewis one day. And
It'd be an excellent interview. His press conferences leading up were beautiful.
And you say that to him. And I say that you don't strike me as a guy that read a lot of books.
Yeah. You're probably getting punched, and I'll tell him.
I'll take it back.
I tell him as like
Sunday night.
I'd be
dad. I'm winning the head.
Yeah. I'd tell him as like not that I don't want to see you die in the cage. That's just like I'm happy to let you fight. I'm happy to let you fight until you die. It's like I'm not going to call the fight on you. And he'd be like,
consensual.
I'm going to fight. I want to win. So don't call the fight until I'm out.
Derek Lewis, if you're listening, we don't endorse any of these comments.
But give him more chances. Is what I'm getting at. Okay. Either way.
I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight, thinking that Derek Lewis is going to come kill me.
Yeah. The other big name on this fight, there's another flyweight fight in this, and unfortunately, like besides the two we mentioned before, like those three, the division's very, very light on. So these guys get up and coming. Anthony Smith was another big name, and he lost by a knockout as well in this. And that was the card.
Bit of boxing news. Tim Tszyu announced he will fight Jamel Charlo for undisputed super welterweight crown. January 28, Las Vegas. Let's go, Tim Tszyu. Kambosos going to have a rematch in Melbourne?
Yeah, interesting, in Melbourne. So I thought it'd be back in the States, considering he's no longer the champion. But yeah, it sounds like Melbourne going to put it up. Obviously, probably some decent coin involved in that for the fighters.
I'd say so.
To allow that fight to happen here instead of in Vegas. But yeah, that's really boxing news. Jake Paul, fight cancelled. Where? And that's where we are with boxing, I guess.
Harry Garside. I was close to shouting him a beer. He's an unusual cat, and I saw him on KO. Matty Johns was interviewing him this week, and I just love what he's about. He's articulate. He's thoughtful, and he may be another Australian boxing champ in the future. So check that out if you got the KO, Harry Garside with Matty Johns.
Yeah, and the other Tszyu brother did win his fight the last couple of weeks.
Nikita.
Well. Yes. Yeah. Which ended up being a bit of it was actually a good fight. I watched it. He couldn't put his opponent away, and his opponent started to get back in late there. And I think Justin Hodges fought on that boxing card. I just didn't know whether he won. He's fighting Jordan Sammy.
Yeah, he won, and I believe he wants Paul Gallen.
Next, yes, that is the chat.
Which will be interesting to see if that eventuates. I think Paul Gallen already on Sportsbet / unofficial sponsors. Very short.
And Sonny Bill, I think, is in that conversation somewhere, but we'll see how that all plays out.
The F1 tonight, boys. It's in Hungary, is it not?
Yeah, lots happened. To summarise, Ferrari keep hurting themselves. They either blow their cars up or put them in the wall. Max Verstappen's taken a bigger lead. Red Bull's very clear from everyone else. Mercedes have continued to keep improving week on, week out, which probably we'll talk to Hungary as well, with George Russell on pole being the fastest, with the Red Bulls being second and third. Sorry, not the Red Bulls. Ferrari's being second, third, and the Red Bulls struggling, being 10th and 11th.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, very crazy. McLaren's and the Alpines in front of them as well of both Mercedes. So it'll be interesting to see if the Mercedes can start potentially take over for Ferrari in the constructors, and then can they potentially compete for the World Championship? I'm not sure. George has been probably the most consistent of Mercedes. Maybe he can win this. They were second and third, first double podium for Mercedes last week as well. So they're coming. I feel like they're coming. We're maybe turning into a 3-horse race. We'll see how some of the regulation, being stricter on the floorboards is as well for Ferrari and Red Bull. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of movement there. So yeah, it'll be an interesting race. This race tonight, very interesting, with Mercedes kind of pushing their Ferraris, looking very fast, and then the Red Bulls basically going to have to run through the field to catch up.
Also, how much does the pole really mean? That, with Leclerc this year having pole on multiple occasions and not being able to finish it off.
True. Yeah.
From a casual.
Yes. I think it's probably more a Ferrari thing than anything. Pole definitely would be more helpful. Hungary, Probably it's not Monaco, so there's probably more potential there for the change in the leadership. It probably hurts. I think Leclerc was second most because starting third is better because second you're off the racing line and third's got more rubber. So wouldn't surprise me if Sainz takes Leclerc going into the first corners of the race. Has been wet all week, so it'll be interesting to see what that means for the race come 11 o'clock. They've had lots of rain in and out across the weekend, the race weekend. Vettel being one that did bin his car in, I think, practice 3 and they had to rebuild the car, or practice 2 and they had to rebuild the car before qualifying at the end of the day. So bit hard there. And speaking of Vettel, he's retiring, finishing up. He announced his retirement from F1, which is quite interesting. I think it may be with Aston Martin there not being as competitive as they like. He probably wants to compete for championships. Doesn't really have the car. He has playing second fiddle to the daddy's favourite son and Lance Stroll. And he wants to do other things. And for us, full-time world champion, to me, he was very much the villain in the Mark Webber story, being the Australian fan. Yep. But I've kind of grown to know Vettel more for, the other things he's done. He's not the father figure of the paddock, but he's there supporting all the other drivers and supporting like their initiative as well. Big supporter of Lewis, of course, big supporter of Mick Schumacher with their family history as well. Yeah. I've really liked to see his support and he's kind of changed from what he was like as the villain for our Mark Webber Australian story to what he is now. Big congrats to him, full-time world champion. You can never take that away from him, and he'll be missed. Don't know what that means for that racing team for next season. Who's going to take that position? Our lad, Danny Rick, already shut down that he's not moving. I think McLaren trying to reaffirm during the weeks that they're going to keep going forward together. Whether that means it frees up a spot. I know of at least 5 different drivers on contracts that are all really, really good that potentially should be getting F1 drives. So that's, again, the cutthroat nature of the sport, all very young, whether that's a spot for Oscar, maybe, whether they finally move Latifi on and Alex Albon, who've both been struggling at Williams, and they get a loan there. Sooner Oscar's in Formula One, the better for us Australian fans. And anything else, Mux, you want to add for F1?
News about Red Bull Porsche.
Oh, yes, go for it.
So Red Bull and Porsche seem to be closing in on a deal for Porsche to take over 50% stake in the F1 team. Yeah. So we're talking about it pre-pod. It's probably will be, I guess, Porsche taking on development of the engines, with Audi also coming in potentially. I'm
not sure. Well, I think they'll contribute to Red Bull because Red Bull's building that factory for engine development. So I think Porsche, with their mechanical knowledge, will be heavily inputted into that development. But Red Bull, Porsche, I think is going to be future of that team. They'll build the engines and probably be an engine supplier to Audi, and whether they buy Alfa Romeo or Haas or one of the other teams, who knows? Yeah. So but they're all coming.
Yeah, that's it. It's still a couple of years away before they enter into F1, but definitely something to keep an eye out on. Watch the space. Watch what happens with the teams, and
will they get naming rights? Will it be Porsche Red Bull?
Yeah, I reckon they'd have naming rights. So, back in the day, Aston Martin was the main name for Red Bull. So they had their name plastered across the spoiler.
Yeah, I think McLaren Mercedes probably the most recent one I can think of. That's how Mercedes got into it, and then they went out on their own. So I think with Red Bull, with their history, they'll probably Red Bull Porsche makes similar sense to me. To start with, but you never know. Porsche, they might take over that team, or they might then use that as a way to then separate, like Mercedes did in after running for 5 to 10 years in the sport, become their own juggernaut. Who knows? Mercedes, Mercedes is the challenge. What they're trying to challenge. Porsche and Audi want to compete with them. They fight over the exact same market for sales of vehicles, and you'll be surprised what happens on Sunday, race day Sunday. Turns into sales on Monday when the showroom's open. So,
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
You know, Pepe's tidbit?
What is it?
It's got nothing to do with F1. I was reading the history of Hungary.
Oh, yeah.
The Hungarian people originated from east of the Ural Mountains. So, like 1,000 years ago, they're from their modern day Russia. And if you ever see the Hungarian language, it's a bit of a mouthful for most English speakers. It's because it's not related to any other European languages. There you go.
You're right.
There you go. Bit of history chat for you of the conquest of the Carpathian Plateau.
Anyways,
On that note.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening during the week, whatever you're doing, riding the bus, on the tools, whatever you're doing, thank you for listening to The Esky. We will be back next week, regular programming, I believe. Thanks for listening, etc. Coming up on 100 shows. We should do something for 100.
Is it?
yes.
Yeah,
91
91?
Yeah, okay.
Raise the bat,
Line to go.
Yeah.
etc., etc. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the sports and dribble chat. We'll see you next time on The Esky. Ta-ta for now.
Bye.
Bye.